You might think you know how a war story begins boots in mud, rifles in hand, officers barking orders over the sound of distant explosions. But the truth is, the moments that truly decide everything rarely look like that. They don't begin with a roar, but with a quiet so sharp you can hear your heartbeat, a silence that feels like it's watching you back. If you're listening to this right now, maybe it's late at night, your phone glowing softly in the dark, or maybe you're walking with your hands in your pockets while the world passes around you. Pause for a second and imagine you're somewhere else entirely. The ground is cold beneath your boots, frost biting through the leather, and the air tastes faintly of smoke from a fire you can't see. You're not at the start of the war when hope was still cheap, nor at the very end when the lines on the map had already begun to shift. You're in the middle, where days have blurred together into a long grind that has reshaped the way you think, the way you move, even the way you breathe. Your unit is too small for the task ahead. Only 11 tanks remain, their steel hulls dulled with dirt and scratches, and fewer than 150 infantrymen are left to hold what little ground you've gained. The maps you've been given barely bother to mark this place. It's all minor roads, half-collapsed walls, and an abandoned orchard where rotting fruit sinks into the mud. The first steps feel deceptively easy, boots crunching over frozen soil, rifles carried at the ready, but something in the air feels wrong. The silence is heavier than it should be, pressing against your ears until even the sound of your breath feels too loud. You notice the man beside you keeps glancing to the sides without speaking, as if saying anything would shatter a fragile thread holding this moment together. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you think of home, not the grand image of victory parades or flags, but something small and ordinary. The way sunlight used to spill across the kitchen table in winter, the smell of bread baking in the morning, the way your boots once felt warm after resting beside the stove. These memories are dangerous in a place like this. They can pull you out of the present when you need to be sharper than ever. Still, they come uninvited, sliding between the cracks of the here and now. Ahead of you, Castle Hill rises against a pale sky. It's not a castle anymore, just the battered bones of one blackened stone walls, towers leaning at angles that suggest the next strong wind could finish the job that centuries of weather and war have started. But it's high ground, and in war, high ground is everything. From up there, you can see for miles, and from up there, the enemy can see you. The Germans know this, and so does every man in your unit. The plan is simple in theory. Hold your current ground until reinforcements arrive, then push forward to take the hill. In practice, nothing is simple. Reinforcements mean the 2nd Ranger Battalion, men trained to think and move differently, to read the land like it's a language. Only they can understand. They won't wait for detailed orders. They'll improvise, adapt, and act as one without needing to be told how. You've heard stories about them, and some are probably exaggerated, but in moments like this, you hope every word is true. The waiting is the worst part. You crouch behind the jagged remains of a stone wall, scanning the slope ahead. Every broken branch, every shadowed gap between the rocks looks like it could hide a rifle barrel. Your fingers tighten on your weapon without you telling them to. Somewhere far ahead, a bird startles into flight, its wings flashing briefly against the sky before it disappears. You don't know if it was just the wind or something more. The Rangers arrive without ceremony, no cheering, no sudden rush. One moment, it's just you and the men you've been marching with for days. The next, they're there, their presence altering the air like a change in the weather. Orders are exchanged quietly, almost casually, like men discussing the best way to cross a stream. But beneath that calm is a shared understanding. The next move will matter. You move out together, advancing in short bursts, using every scrap of cover you can find. The ground is treacherous patches of ice hidden under mud, rocks that shift. Under your weight, and open stretches where you can feel invisible eyes tracking your every step. Your breath fogs in the cold, and every exhale feels like it might betray your position. You keep going anyway, because stopping isn't an option. Then it happens, a sudden burst of gunfire from somewhere ahead, sharp and fast. You drop instantly, cheek pressed against the frozen ground. The earth smells of iron and damp decay, a smell you'll remember long after this place is gone. The man beside you mutters something low, too quiet to catch, but his tone tells you it's not a prayer he expects to be answered. The Rangers don't hesitate. They shift, spread out, return fire in short, controlled bursts, and begin moving. Again, you follow, heart hammering, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. Castle Hill feels closer now, its jagged silhouette cutting into the sky. Somewhere up there, hidden among the ruins, the enemy is watching, waiting, and you can almost feel their gaze on the back of your neck. That's when you hear it, not the crack of a rifle or the echo of a tank's cannon, but something stranger, lower, almost like a deep hum rolling down the slope. It's gone as quickly as it came, leaving only questions in its wake. Was it a signal? A warning? Or something you were never meant to hear? You don't know, and there's no time to find out. The order comes to move, and you obey, legs carrying you forward into the shadow of the hill, where the air feels heavier, and the silence begins again. If you're listening in the dark, keep the room dim and the fan humming, because now the sea stops pretending to be kind. The first thing you notice is not the horizon or the sails, it's the smell. Salt, wet wood, old rope, and a sour hint of sweat that never goes away. You're on a pirate deck that rocks like a nervous animal, and every groan of timber is a warning you can't quite translate. Someone laughs behind you, too loud for the hour, and someone else coughs with a rattle that sounds like a nail shaken in a tin cup. Welcome back. You didn't pick this life. It picked you with a pistol, a shout, and a knife held the wrong way. Press-ganged, renamed, stripped of your shirt and your past, you are pushed below and told to learn fast or bleed faster. And you did learn how to climb rigging and wind that wants you dead, how to swallow fear with stale rum, how to sleep in a swaying hammock without rolling into the man snoring beside you like a broken bellows. The pirate ship has rules that feel like jokes until someone breaks one. Don't waste water. Keep your powder dry. Share the loot by rank. Keep your blade sharp, your mouth shut, and your eyes open at night. The code isn't written anywhere. It lives in teeth-clenched whispers and scars. You saw a boy whipped to the lash for stealing a spoon, and you learned something deep and ugly. On this ship, discipline is a storm, and you'd better be below. Deck when it hits. The food would make a rat cry. Hardtack like bricks, salted meat that tastes like rusted anchors. A stew the cook calls ship's comfort, even though it smells like defeat. There are maggots in the biscuit, and after a wee, you stop caring. A man with a missing tooth swears they're good protein and taps his gums like proof. Water comes rationed, warm, and metal tasting, so you drink grog water cut with rum knot. To be merry, but to keep from getting sick off the water itself. Your gums start to bleed. Your teeth ache. Someone says the word scurvy without meeting your eyes. You try chewing on dried peel. Even rope ends. It helps about as much as a low. Prayer during a high storm. You'll notice the boat most at night. That's when the world shrinks until there's only you, the deck, and the black water. You take your watch with a lantern that swings and paints long, bent shadows. At first, the shadows bother you. Later, the light does. Quiet is a trick the sea plays. Underneath it are 1,000 sounds you train your ears to hear. The different creak when a mast is stressed the wrong way. The slap of a loose line that means someone forgot a knot. The whisper of a wave that's just a bit heavier than it should be. That last sound means the weather is thinking about you. And yet, chaos isn't constant. Some days the water is soft and blue, and you almost understand why men choose this life. There's a rhythm to it: pull, tie, scrub, patch, eat, curse, sleep, repeat. The quartermaster checks the stores, and the captain checks the horizon, and you check your boots for mold and hope. You get used to the way clothes never fully dry, the way the ship moves under you like a breathing thing, the way nicknames appear as quick as bruises. Ratface Pete, Black Tooth, Whisper, Elias, who becomes your almost friend because he doesn't talk to his belt or collect teeth in a pouch. He's the one who teaches you silent rules. Never sit with your back to a hatch. Never be the first at the barrel or the last to leave a fight. Never borrow a knife unless you plan to return it with blood or a better story. You try to be useful and invisible, not too slow, not too good. Being too slow gets you yelled at. Too good gets you noticed, and noticed is dangerous. Pirates have a strange sense of fairness. It feels like justice with a limp. You get a share, small but yours, when a raid succeeds. You get nothing when it doesn't, except more scars and less sleep. The captain can be voted out, which sounds like freedom until you see men whisper in corners and realize votes are just knives with paper. Handles, handles. You keep your head down. You keep your blade oiled. You pretend you don't hear the word mutiny when it passes your way like a bad smell. Let's talk about storms, the real kind. The sky goes from friendly to furious in an hour. Wind becomes a voice that shouts questions and doesn't wait for answers. Someone screams, "Reef the sails," and you're already climbing. Rain eats the world in gray sheets. You taste salt and fear and wood dust at the back of your throat. The ship rises too high and drops too far, and your stomach follows a second late. A man slips, another grabs him. They both stay aboard, and both pretend it didn't matter. After, you're all older without being older. You can tell because nobody sings that night. In the calm that follows, you learn more about the secret economy. Sugar is white gold. Tobacco buys peace. Cloth buys time. Real gold buys enemies. When you take a merchant sloop and find barrels, the quartermaster smiles. When you find coin, the crew gets quiet. Coin makes men count each other's hands. Sugar makes them count the weeks they might live. Still, stories of buried treasure breed like roaches. Everyone knows a map someone once saw, a chest that screams when opened, a wreck that glints at low tide. Weevil swears he traded a map for a bottle and a kiss, and insists that's why he's still breathing. Maybe he's right. The prize that changes things is silence, not silver. For days, a thin shape follows you on the horizon, never close, never gone. A cloud that thinks it's a ship, or a ship that pretends to be a cloud. The captain changes. Course, it changes too. You eat, you work, you sleep with one eye open, and still it's there. Whisper disappears in port and leaves behind a folded list with names on it. Yours, Elias's, men you know, and men you just nod at. Informant, insurance, curse. The air on deck turns tight. Laughter grows sharp at the edges and feels like it might cut if you hold it wrong. Then one night, the water barrels catch fire. Fire at sea is a word you don't say out loud. The flames die fast, but the water dies with them. There's a trial without a court. The captain points at a man named France. He cries. It doesn't help. Most men watch the execution with faces like doors. You stare at the planks and count knots, so you don't have to count breaths. After that, trust is a rope with too much slack and too many hands on it. You learn a new habit. Carve a tiny mark beside your hammock each morning to say, "I'm still here." On the third day, someone scores a line through your third mark. A joke, a warning, or a promise, you can't tell. The shadow ship vanishes. As suddenly as it came. Relief doesn't. That's the thing no one tells you. Fear has a long echo. Even on quiet days, you hear its tale. It's just enough time for the Navy to arrive. No flag raised at first, just a white sail sliding out of the mist like a knife out of a sheath. Then the royal colors snap open like a court ruling clean cloth, clean lines, clean hatred. The first cannonball lands wide with a slap of water. That hits your face from 50 yards. The second kisses the stern and showers the deck with splinters that cut like bees. You move without thinking, because thinking is for land. Powder, ram, swab, load, haul. The gun teams work like a lung. Inhale, exhale, thunder. Your broadside takes a bite out of their canvas. They answer with iron and discipline. Pirates are. Fast. Navies are practiced. Both can kill you. Grapples fly. You hate grapples. They're the ropes that turn distance into decisions. Borders pour across with uniforms, and perfect faces that look wrong under smoke. This is not a duel. This is a push, a crush, a howl with steel accents. Pistols crack once and then become clubs. Swords aren't elegant, they're stubborn. You learn that victory tastes like blood and burned powder and someone else's breath too close to your face. Your quartermaster roars and becomes a thing. You wouldn't meet in daylight. They falter. You set their deck on fire and cut the ropes, and for half a minute, you let yourself breathe because you didn't die. Half a minute is too long. They come back at night, different ship, same flag, while you're sleeping for the first time in 2 days. No shout, just boots. You wake with a blade at your throat and that neat, ironed officer face inches from yours. They tie your wrists with rope that smells like wet hemp and grammar. The officer reads charges in a bored voice. Piracy, theft, violence, the usual list of words that mean you made the wrong enemies. They put you in a brig the size of a closet that sweats. You breathe other men's breath and learn exactly how. Long an hour can be when there's no line between your shoulder and someone else's. Rumor swims through the cells that you're headed for Port Royal, where the gallows are tall and the crowds are hungry for a morning story. You want to be brave, and you are, except when you aren't. A scribe with ink-stained fingers offers you a deal. Names for mercy. You ask for an orange and smile without meaning to. He doesn't. Nights shake loose like rotten planks. A guard drops keys near the bars once, a miracle wearing a uniform, and nobody moves. Freedom is a shape you can't remember how to hold. The dock smells like brine and iron and bread, and something faintly sweet you'll figure out later was pity. People line the road and look at you like a parade of choices they didn't have to make. A boy points and laughs because he doesn't know yet what laughing costs. Trials are theater. The judge already has the last page of your story in his pocket. You say, "Not guilty," because it's a sentence that still belongs to you. And so do the others, and it all looks the same on paper. "Guilty," says the gavel, and the rope nods like it agrees. The last meal is bread and cheese, and a stew that tastes almost human. Elias splits his bread with you even though he hasn't smiled since the brig. A minister arrives with a book, too big for the room, and asks if you want to pray. Elias answers with a sentence that shuts the door. You sleep with your eyes open and count the lines in the wood the way you once counted stars. Morning has a sound, boots, murmurs, gulls balancing, on air as if nothing beneath them is breaking. The rope is rough. You smell smoke that isn't there yet. Someone asks if you have final words. You say something small and stubborn and spit, because pirates don't bow. The trap coughs and the world jumps, then the world breaks. Boom. The gallows jerks like a puppet yanked by a drunk god. Smoke blooms. Screams stack on top of each other. The rope burns but loosens, and your feet find a desperate board that wasn't there a second ago. Hands catch your legs, Elias, wild-eyed, bleeding. Alive, and a knife kisses the rope and hates it and keeps cutting anyway until you fall into a shove that becomes a run. The square turns animal. People sprint, trip, shout. Some help. Some watch. Some reach for pockets because chaos has pockets. Gunshots argue with each other. The air fills with ash that tastes like old barrels. Was it Maud with her clean deck ship and green eyes? Smugglers paid in silver? A devil with good timing? Pick the story you like. None will be proved, and all will be told. What matters is the alley that doesn't exist on any map. The door that opens when it shouldn't. The skiff that leaks just a little less than you fear. You push off with 5 others who are breathing like they're trying not to spend the last of their lungs. The oars complain. The sea pretends not to notice. Port. Royal shrinks into a line of lamps and voices, and then into nothing. The ocean doesn't welcome you back. It tolerates you the way a landlord tolerates rent paid late. The sun turns mean. The wind goes on holiday. You drink warm water that tastes like someone else's metal cup. At Nig, HT, you hallucinate a kitchen. Light and a ship's bell, and a face you can't afford to remember. You dream that your hands are tied, and wake to find you were right yesterday, wrong today. On the 4th day, a hull slides across your sky like an answer. No colors. Fast. Quiet. You don't wave. You don't beg. You stare the way a cornered animal stares, ready to run without moving. Hooks bite the skiff, and you go up like a fish that wishes it were a bird. Men crowd. One prods your ribs as if they might jingle. A voice you know says, "Drop him. He's with me." Maud. Hat wide, eyes cold, deck clean, ropes coiled the same way a plan coils. She asks what happened to the gallows like she's asking about the weather. You say it didn't take. It's almost a joke. She almost smiles. Food, water, sleep. A hammock that smells like salt instead of strangers. The first sip of something. Amber that burns kindness into your throat. Maud offers 2 doors. Tortuga and goodbye, or stay and pull your weight. She prefers survivors. People who have looked at a noose and learned the shape of their own choices. You say nothing, and then, yes, because sometimes silence is the last test. Life under Maud is the same song with a better drum. The code is spoken, and the punishments are rare because the rules are clear. She hunts smart, not loud. Merchant cutters that won't fight. Privaters with more swagger than skill. She trades where no flags bother to hang, and pays fair, because fair lasts longer than fear. The crew is mixed women. Men, a fiddler with a 3rd nipple he calls lucky. A cook who can make fish taste like a plan. A carpenter who swears he kissed a sea ghost and can't eat oysters since. You fix ropes and patch sails and learn to choose a wave the way some people choose words. Some laughs don't hide knives in them, and nights where the only sounds are a low tune and the ship breathing. For a while, quiet is not a threat. Then, the vote. Word of a prize fat with silver leaving Havana, guarded not by flags, but by men paid to be cruel. To be cruel. Big risk, big return, says Maud, and she lets you all decide because a crew that chooses its storm rows harder. You vote yes, not for coin, but to feel your feet grip a deck with purpose again. The fight is fast and long at the same time. Mercenaries. Don't fold, they chip. Pistols once, blades forever, a tumble down a hatch, barrels, broken boards, powder dust in your mouth like old fear. You win by an inch, you'll pay for it later. 4 don't rise when the shouting stops. Elias is 1. gut shot while buying you 3 steps. You drag him to light, and the light is unkind. He reminds you about an orange you owe him, and then the sea takes that debt into its ledger. There are words, Maud says, and there are none you can find. The canvas roll feels heavier than it should. The splash is small. A night after grief is its kind of weather. You sit with this pipe that won't light and listen to a laugh you almost hear in the wind. Some say souls live in the rigging for a while. You don't say that out loud because saying it makes it hurt in a new place. Maud offers you a command months later, your sloop, your vote, your own mistakes. Freedom with a captain's hat on. You say no, and for once it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like choosing. You come ashore on an island that doesn't ask questions. A hut, a beach, fruit you don't have to steal from a barrel, a small boat to fix, people who nod without checking your hands for rings that aren't theirs. When someone asks about the scar on your neck, you say you tried to kiss the wrong officer and smile until they laugh. At night, the sea calls you like a song you used to love too much. You don't answer, not out loud. Survival isn't glory. It's what you do after the story was supposed to end. And yet, because this is the sea, nothing is over. There are lanterns some nights, far out where no ships should be. There is a flag you glimpse once with an hourglass over crossed blades, and you think of Maud and wonder if she still sails a deck that doesn't smell like fear. There is a rumor in the market a month later that a Navy officer has a list with names crossed out and one not. You don't ask which name. You mend a net instead and tell yourself that mending is a kind of winning. If you're still here with me, breathe. You'd think leaving the sea would mean leaving the sea's games behind, but it turns out the ocean has a way of writing letters you can't refuse. It starts small boats coming in from the horizon, slower than they should, crews stepping onto the dock with the kind of faces men wear when they've been told a story they wish wasn't true. A trader from Barbados says 3 ships are gone. No wreckage, no survivors, just gone. A fisherman swears he saw a flag with an hourglass and 2 blades, black on black, almost invisible, except when the light caught the paint. You keep your head down and mend nets, telling yourself storms swallow ships all the time. But there's a tone in these stories, a shape, like the sea is keeping score. Then one night, you hear a knock at your hut door that doesn't belong to the land. 3 taps, a pause, 2 more. The sound sits in your chest like old rope burn. You open it to find a boy with salt-crusted hair and a message tucked in an oilskin. Maud asks if you still owe her. You don't, not really, but that's not how debts work out here. The boy doesn't wait for an answer. He's gone before. The door finishes closing. The next morning, your skiff is already stocked water casks, dried fish, a coil of rope you didn't buy. You could walk away. You could burn the skiff. But there's a current under your feet now, pulling you toward something you don't want, but can't not see. You leave before dawn, rowing toward the place where the sky melts into the horizon. The first day is calm, too calm. On the second, you hear another hull in the dark. No light, no sail sound, just the whisper of water cut by something fast. You steer away without thinking, because out here, what finds you in the dark is never a friend. By the 3rd day, Maud's ship rises from the horizon like it's been carved out of the morning sails tight, deck clean, her figure at the rail like she's been standing there since the last time you saw her. She doesn't shout, doesn't wave. You climb aboard, and she looks you over like she's checking for cracks. You've gotten softer, she says, but there's something behind it that isn't mockery. You don't ask what she's calling you in for. She'll tell you when she wants to, and not before. That night, the crew moves quietly, as you remember. No songs, no dice, just a focus you can feel in the planks under your boots. The quartermaster hands out weapons without ceremony, pistols, wrapped in oilcloth, cutlasses that haven't seen air in months. You take yours without asking why. The air smells of rain, but the sky is clear. Maud calls a meeting at the mainmast. She doesn't pace, doesn't raise her voice, just says, "We're going to take something the Navy thinks it owns." Murmurs ripple die. "It's a prison hulk," she continues. "Packed. They're moving them from Port Royal to Kingston for trial. Some of them never make it." She doesn't have to say why. Disease, thirst, accidents that look like accidents. You know the type of ship low in the water, heavy with bodies, guarded by men who think the law is a knife they get to hold by the handle. The plan is madness and precision at the same time. Hit them at dawn when their eyes are slow. Use smoke to blind their gunners. Get the prisoners out before anyone realizes half the guards are already in the water. You can feel the crew taking it in, weighing the odds like coins in their palms. Some nod, some spit. You feel your pulse in your teeth. You've been on the wrong side of those bars. The thought of breaking them is like breathing after too long underwater. When the prison hulk finally appears, it's uglier than you expected. A floating wall of filth, paint peeling in long curls, the air around it already sour with rot. Guards are lazy in the way men get when they think no one would dare touch them. Maud's helmsman takes you in slow. Sails slack like a merchant come to bag a trade. At 50 yards, the wind snaps the flag open, no skull, no bones, just black end. The first smoke pots hit the water, hissing into clouds that roll across the deck. You're over the side before the first alarm finishes ringing. Boarding is chaos-blurred shapes, shouts and voices you half know, the metallic taste of powder in the air. You cut through a lock that screams like a gull, push into the hold, and the darkness hits you like a wall. The smell is worse sweat, piss, hopelessness. Faces turn toward you, some too gaunt to recognize, some burning with sudden, dangerous hope. You toss the first set of keys you find to a man with eyes like sharpened glass. "Move," you tell him, and he does, because he was already halfway to moving before you got their dot up top. The Navy is waking up angry. Muskets crack, blades ring against the rail. You guide a line of freed men toward the rope Maud's crew has thrown down, but the air is filling with splinters and screams, and you know some of them won't make it. You keep going, because stopping here is a kind of death too. Maud's voice cuts through it all, steady, precise, like she's naming steps in a dance you're all learning at the same time. When the last prisoner climbs over, you're almost sure you've made it, until you hear the low, deliberate click of a musket behind you. You turn slowly. The officer holding it is the same one who read your death sentence in Port Royal. His uniform too clean for this deck, his eyes too certain. "Back where you belong," he says. You don't answer, just step sideways, letting the ship's roll shift his aim for a fraction of a second. It's enough. The freed man with the glass eyes is behind him now, and the musket goes off in the wrong direction, a shot lost to the smoke. You don't see what happens to the officer after that. The hold swallows him, or the sea does. You're already moving, hauling yourself up the rope until your hands feel like they're peeling. Maud's crew cuts away before the Navy can regroup. The prison hulk is fading into the haze behind you, and for a moment the deck is full of cheers, but they're ragged, tired, the kind of cheers that know what was paid. There are bodies in the water, friend and enemy both, and the sea makes no distinction. You help haul the last man over, a boy no older than you were when you first felt rope at your wrists. He says nothing, just leans against the rail like he's trying to figure out if this is real. That night, the freed prisoners sit apart from the crew, eyes adjusting to space, air, and choice. You know some of them will vanish in the next port. Some will stay, some will find the first quiet place and never move again. You sit with Maud on the quarterdeck, both of you watching the horizon like it might try something. You didn't have to come, she says without looking at you. You tell her you did, because some debts aren't about coin or code. She doesn't smile, but her shoulder shifts just enough to count. You sleep that night with the hatch open, the smell of the sea in your lungs, and a dream of the gallows rope fraying under your hands. When you wake, the deck is different still, expectant. Maud's looking at something through her spyglass, her face unreadable. She hands it to you without speaking. Far off, barely more than a smudge against the dawn, is a ship with a flag. You know too well. The hourglass and the blades, black on black, patient as time. Maud says only, "They've been following us since Tortuga." You hand the glass back, and the air feels heavier. Some storms you see coming. Some you've been sailing toward for years without knowing it. The thing about being followed at sea is you never quite know when the game started. Maybe they spotted you leaving Tortuga. Maybe they were waiting for you 3 harbors back. Or maybe they've been trailing you so long they could draw the pattern of your sails from memory. That flag, the hourglass, and the crossed blades has a way of making the air colder, like someone just opened a door you didn't know was behind you. The crew notices it too. They work faster, speak less. Even the new men we freed from the prison hulk seem to feel it, though none of them have seen that flag before. It's not famous, not like the skull and crossbones, but the ones who do recognize it don't say the name out loud. Out here, some names aren't for the wind to hear. Maud doesn't change course right away. That's the first sign this is different. Normally, she'd be plotting a wide arc to lose them, slipping into the kind of waters only a fool or a friend would follow. Instead, she keeps us on the same heading, sails full, as if inviting them to close the gap. You can feel it in your bones, the waiting. Every man on deck pretends to focus on his work, but eyes flick to the horizon more than they should. The flag stays in sight all day, never gaining, never falling back. It's a shadow that knows exactly how far it needs to be by nightfall. The wind shifts. It's not much, just a lazy veer from the east. But Maud has the helm at just 3 points without explanation. The other ship mirrors the movement exactly. No hesitation. No scouting. Just instant mimicry, like a reflection in black water. That's when the murmurs start below deck. Some of the older crew talk about the silent gale, a ship said to ride. Storms without raising a wave. Others swear it's just a rival crew testing our nerve. But in the dark, when the lanterns are dim and the wood creaks like something breathing, the stories take sharper edges about ships that don't need ports, crews that never eat or drink, captains whose faces no one remembers, but whose voices you hear in your sleep. The next morning, the wind dies completely. The sea flattens into glass, and our sails hang like they've forgotten what they're for. The black flag stays fixed in the distance, utterly still. You'd think they'd drift, lose position, but they don't. Not an inch. The air is hot now, the kind that makes tempers short and movements heavy. Maud orders the longboats out not to row away, but to circle the ship, check for anything unusual in the water. When one of the men leans too far over the side, he comes back pale, muttering about shadows beneath us moving the wrong way. Against the current by midday, Maud calls everyone to the main deck. Her voice is steady, but the way she scans each face before speaking tells you this isn't just a briefing. They'll come when they're ready, she says, and when they do, you'll want to remember who you are before you remember what to do. It's not a riddle, but it feels like one. She has the weapons brought up and laid out in the sun, oiling every blade, checking every pistol. Even the freed prisoners get armed, though some hold the steel like it's a memory they'd rather forget. The hours. The heat presses in. You start to notice things you shouldn't: whispers under the slap of the waves. The way the rigging sways, even when there's no wind, shapes in the haze that vanish when you try to count them. That's when the other ship moves. No sails, no oars, just moves, closer, smooth as if the water itself is carrying it forward. The gap closes faster than it should, and by the time the sun begins to sink, they're near enough to see the details. The hull is black, but not painted. It looks burnt. The wood blistered like it's been through fire and didn't bother to heal. The flag doesn't ripple. The crew, if you can call them, that stand in perfect lines along the rail, not speaking, not shifting. One of them raises a hand. Just one, slow, deliberate. It's not a greeting. It's a counting. 3 fingers. Then 2. Then 1. The first shot comes not from a cannon, but from something heavier, a harpoon, thick as your wrist, trailing rope that hisses into the water. It misses the deck by feet, but the sound it makes punching into the sea feels wrong, like it's burrowing rather than sinking. The crew moves instantly, cutting the rope before it can be hauled. Maud's orders are clipped, precise, ballast ready, powder dry. Keep them off the hull. They try to board without firing a single. Cannon, grappling hooks arc through the air, some catching, some bouncing off the rail. You hack at one with your cutlass, the rope fraying under each blow. A shadow lands beside you, one of their boarders, silent, fast. His eyes are pale, his skin weathered like driftwood. He doesn't shout, doesn't even breathe heavy, just comes at you with a short blade that moves like it's part of his arm. The fight is quick, brutal. You dodge, parry, and feel the sting as his blade catches your sleeve. Before he can press the attack, another freed prisoner slams into him from the side, sending both of them over the rail into the churning black. Around you, the deck is a tangle of bodies, steel, and ropes. Maud's crew fights with the sharp precision of people who've done this too many times, but the other side, they don't flinch. Even when wounded, they keep coming, as if pain is something they misplaced years ago. Then the wind comes back, all at once, slamming into both ships. The sudden force tears some of the boarding lines free, spinning the 2 hulls apart just enough to break the deadlock. Maud seizes the chance, barking for the helmsman to turn hard to port. The sails catch, the ship surges forward, and the black-flagged shadow falls behind, slowly at first, then faster, swallowed by the haze. But no one cheers this time. No one relaxes. You can feel it in your gut. They let us go. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Maud knows it too. She doesn't look back at the horizon. She just keeps her eyes ahead, as if the only way to stay alive is to pretend they're not still back there. That night, the stars are bright, the water calm, and the ship's lanterns cast warm circles on the deck. It should feel safe, but every shadow seems longer than it should be. Every creak in the hull a little too sharp. You lie awake in your hammock, listening for that sound, the deep hum you once heard rolling down Castle Hill, and wondering if, out here, it means the same thing. The morning comes quietly, but it's the kind of quiet that doesn't trust itself. The sea is calm, the sky pale and clean, the gulls wheeling overhead like it's just another day, but the crew moves more softly, their voices low, their eyes touching the horizon without meaning to. The memory of that black-flagged ship hasn't left anyone. Even the men who pretend they aren't thinking about it grip the rail too tightly or keep their knives within easy reach. Maud spends most of the early hours at the helm, one hand on the wheel, the other turning her spyglass slowly, from port to starboard. If she sees anything, she doesn't say. We make for an island called Bell Tower Key, named for the stone tower on its north point that rings at high tide without anyone touching it. Some say it's a trick of the waves, others that it's the ghosts of sailors drowned on its reefs. The tower's been abandoned longer than anyone here's been alive, but every captain in these waters knows it as a meeting place, where ships can anchor and crews can trade without spilling blood mostly. Maud wants fresh water and a place to fix the rigging torn in yesterday's fight. She also wants information, though she won't say what dot we reach Bell Tower Key in the late afternoon. The sand is pale, almost white, and the reef waters glow in bands of turquoise and deep blue. The tower stands crooked at the edge of the cliffs, its bell long gone, but its stones still black with old salt. 2 other ships are already anchored. In the bay, a fat merchant brig flying the colors of Nassau, and a narrow, sharp-looking sloop with no flag at all. The crews eye each other from their decks, the unspoken agreement holding. This is neutral ground for now. On shore, the air is thick with the smell of salt and tar, mixed with the sharp tang of citrus from the crates being rolled up from the Alcoves. Beach. Traders in patched coats haggle over barrels of rum, dried meat, ropes, and lantern oil. Maud walks through it like she owns it, her coat open, her hands empty, but her eyes busy. She stops at a table where an old man sells maps drawn. On sailcloth, the ink faded, but the lines are still sharp. They speak in low tones, and though I can't hear the words, I catch the way the old man's eyes flick toward the sea, and then quickly away. Back at the ship, the crew works fast to refill water casks, patch sails, and replace the boarding hooks. We lost. The freed prisoners who've stayed aboard. Help without complaint work is work, and it keeps the mind from wandering too far into memories. One of them, the man with glassy eyes who helped me on the prison hulk, leans against a barrel and says quietly, "You know they'll come again, right?" I don't ask how he knows. The certainty in his voice is enough. That nig, HT, we anchor off the far side of the quay, away from the other ships. The tower looms above us in silhouette, its broken windows watching. Maud calls a meeting on deck. The moonlight makes her face unreadable. "The one following us," she says, "isn't after gold or cargo. They're after a man." She doesn't say who, but I see a few heads turn toward the glass-eyed prisoner. He doesn't flinch. "If we hand him over," Maud continues, "they'll still take the rest of us. That's their way." She lays out her plan. We leave at first light, skirt the outer reefs to buy time, and head into waters where the currents fight each other hard enough to snap a keel in half. "They'll have to risk the same," she says. "And if they're not what they seem, maybe we see it then. We see it then." I sleep little. The sound of the water against the hull feels different here, heavier somehow. At one pull, I hear the faint, hollow ring of the bell tower, though the tide isn't high yet. No one else stirs, and I wonder if I dreamed it. When? The first light of dawn leaks over the horizon. Maud is already at the helm. The sails go up in silence. The anchor comes up slowly to avoid the chains rattling, and we slip out into the channel like a shadow peeling away from another shadow dot by mid-morning. The wind picks up, carrying us toward the open sea. The reefs. Here are sharp and shifting, the kind that seem to move when you're not looking. The crew keeps their eyes on the water, reading the swirls and ripples like scripture. Then, from the starboard side, the lookout calls, "Sail!" It's the black hull, closer than it should be, as if it simply appeared there while we were busy looking elsewhere. The flag with the hourglass and blades flutters once, lazily, like it knows we've seen it, and that's enough. Maud doesn't. Curse doesn't shout, she just says, "Hold course." The wind stiffens, the water foams white along the hull, and the reef shadows beneath us grow darker. The other ship follows, never drifting, never needing to adjust. It's wrong every ship adjusts. Even the best helmsman has to fight the sea's mood, but this one moves like the sea is doing it favors. The first danger comes at noon. A hidden ridge of coral, black and jagged, rises out of nowhere ahead. Maud turns the wheel hard, the crew leaning into the shift, and we scrape past with barely a hand's width to spare. Behind us, the black ship takes the same line perfectly, without slowing, without even lifting a spray. They're not guessing. The glass-eyed man mutters beside me. They know. For hours, we race the reefs, threading between teeth of stone that could gut us in seconds. The black ship never falters. Then, just as the sun starts to drop, the water changes color a head-deep, strange green, the sign of a current that can drag a ship under before the crew knows they're sinking. Maud steers straight for it. Some of the men grip the rail, ready for the pull, but when we hit the edge, the current catches us like a hand and throws us forward with a force that nearly rips the tiller from the helmsman's grip. The ship lurches, the sails strain, but we ride it out, bursting into calmer water on the far side. We turn to see if the black ship will follow. It does, straight in. And just like before, it comes out the other side without losing a man, a rope, or even a breath. Maud's jaw tightens. Then it's not the reefs that'll stop them, she says. It's us. Night falls fast in these waters. The stars are clear, but the horizon is empty, no sign of them. Still, no one believes they're gone. The crew eats in silence, the usual laughter and bickering replaced by the steady creak of the timbers. Somewhere in the dark, far off, a single bell rings. Once, twice, then nothing. I know that sound didn't come from the tower. The bell's echo lingers in my ears long after it fades, the way a dream does when you're not sure if you want to remember it or forget it. Morning comes without warning one moment. It's black sea and stars. The next, the horizon is bleeding pale gold, and the crew is already moving. Maud's orders are clipped but calm. We're changing course, she says, pointing us into deeper waters where the trade winds run strong. No more weaving through reefs. Out here, there's nothing between you and whatever follows except time and distance. The deeper sea feels different under the hull, slower, heavier, but steadier. The wind is clean and constant, filling the sails with a sound like steady breathing. For a while, the crew settles into the rhythm. Ropes creaking, boots thudding softly on deck, the occasional gull calling overhead. It almost feels normal. But then the lookout calls again. Starboard side. Horizon. A shape. Black dot, it's them. No rush, no panic, just there. Always there. The same distance, the same angle, as if the sea itself measures it for them. The men mutter, their voices low, like speaking too loud might close the gap. Maud doesn't look at the shape. She just tells the helmsman to hold steady. We'll see what they want when they're ready to take it, she says. By midday, the wind freshens, and the sea grows restless small whitecaps at first, then deeper swells that roll under the hull. The black ship rides them perfectly. No pitch, no roll. The glass-eyed prisoner watches it for a long time before finally saying they're not trimming their sails, not even adjusting for wind. I glance at him, and he adds, "That's not seamanship. That's something else." The crew keeps busy. Lines get checked twice, knots retied, and the galley secured. Even small tasks are done with a kind of nervous precision, as if doing them perfectly might keep the wrong kind of luck away. Maud disappears below deck for an hour, and when she returns, she's carrying a carved wooden box the size of a ship's log. She opens it just enough for me to see what's inside. Maps. Yes, but old ones. The ink faded to rust brown and the parchment gone soft at the edges. Some of them aren't maps at all, but strange diagrams of coastlines that don't match anything I've ever sailed. She studies them in the light, then tucks them away without a word. That night, the weather turns. A line of clouds builds low on the western horizon, bruised purple and green at the edges. The wind shifts sharply, colder now, and Maud orders the sails reefed before the squall hits. By the time the first heavy drops hit the deck, the sea is A restless black plain, the waves stacking higher, the wind driving hard. The black ship is still there, still holding its distance, but its sails don't reef, and it doesn't seem to notice the storm-got rain lashes the deck, cold and sharp, and the air tastes like copper. Lightning flares behind the clouds, turning the sea into a sheet of molten silver for half a heartbeat at a time. Between the flashes, you can almost see faces in the waves, too big, too far apart to be anything but tricks of the eye. Still, no one looks too long. Some things you don't stare at, unless you're ready for them to stare back. The storm breaks sometime after midnight. The rain softens to a mist, the wind settles, and the waves lose their bite. The clouds scatter, revealing a thin, pale moon. The black ship is still there, but closer now. Much closer. You can see the lines of its rail, the way the hull is scorched like driftwood pulled from a fire. No lanterns burn on its deck, no movement. Just the silent glide over the water. Maud calls me and the glass-eyed prisoner to the quarterdeck. There, making their move soon, she says. Not tonight, maybe, but soon. She studies the horizon for a long moment, then adds, when they do, they'll come from below. I think she means boarding parties, but the prisoner shakes his head. Not from the deck, he says quietly. From under the water. The next day, Maud orders the crew to prepare the bilge pumps, check the seams along the hull, and secure anything that could be dragged overboard. At first, it sounds like overcaution, but by afternoon, we know why. The water changes. It's subtle, a thicker feel under the hull, a deeper green in the wake, the sound of waves slapping against something just out of sight. Twice, the men. At the rail sware, they see long shapes sliding beneath the surface. Too big for fish. Too smooth for sharks. At sunset, it happens. A dull, heavy thud reverberates through the hull, followed by another, and another, as if something is striking us from below. The pumps are manned instantly, but no water is coming in yet. Then one of the men on the port side yells, and I see it too. A harpoon, thick as my arm, sliding up through the water and catching on our hull. The rope attached to it hums with tension, pulling until Maud's blade flashes, slicing it clean. The rope whips back into the dark with a snap like a bone-breaking dot. It happens again on the starboard, then again on the stern. Each time, the pull grows stronger, the strikes faster. Whatever's down there wants to slow us, to stop us. Maud's orders are sharp, her voice cutting through the chaos. Cut every line. Keep the pumps ready. No one goes overboard. The crew moves like their lives depend on each word, because they do. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stops. The water goes still. The black ship is gone from the horizon. Gone completely. The crew breathes, but it's not relief, just the pause before the next hit. And when it comes, it's not from the sea. It's from the air. A sound rolls over. U.S., low and deep, like the hum I once heard on Castle Hill, but bigger, heavier, filling the bones of the ship. It comes again and again, and I realize with a chill it's not an echo, it's counting. 3, 2, 1. The sea eruption is not like a normal wave breaking, or even a squall tearing the sea open. It's as if the water itself decides to split. For a moment, the moonlight catches on something rising, a slick, barnacle-crusted shape, curved and enormous before it crashes back down, sending a wall of spray that slams into the deck hard, enough to knock 2 men off their feet. The air is full of salt and the sting of sand-like grit, sharp enough to cut skin. In the confusion, I hear Maud's voice, steady but loud, calling orders to hold the wheel steady and keep the sails full. If it's in the water, we don't stop, she says, and the crew obeys without question. The thing beneath us doesn't breach again, but its presence is a weight under the hull. a shadow that shifts with our course. Every few minutes there's a low, scraping sound along the keel, as if claws or something worse are testing the planks. The glass-eyed prisoner stays near the rail, his face unreadable, but I notice his hands are shaking. "I've heard of them," he murmurs, more to himself than to me. "But they were only supposed to follow the dead." Before I can ask, another deep thud hits the stern, followed by a faint tearing noise, like fabric stretched too far. The pumps are manned again, the men's knuckles white on the handles. The black ship appears without warning, not on the horizon, but off our port. Oh, impossibly close. It's riding low in the water now, the hull dark and dripping, as if it's just surfaced from the depths itself. Its sails hang limp, but it still glides forward, perfectly in line with us. No voices call from its deck. No lanterns burn. Then, something moves along its rail, a figure, tall and thin, wrapped in oilcloth that shines wet in the moonlight. The figure raises a long pole, not a weapon exactly, but something like a staff, tipped with metal that glints faintly. Maud sees it, and shouts for the gunners. Our forward swivel cannon roars, the shot sparking off the black ship's hull in a spray of wood splinters. A figure doesn't flinch. Instead, the staff tips toward us, and a sound follows a note, high and steady, so pure it feels like it drills into the skull. Men drop tools, clutching their heads. The ship shudders, not from a hit, but as if its very timbers are answering that sound. I force myself toward Maud, the deck tilting under my feet. "What is that?" I shout over the ringing. She doesn't look away from the figure. "It's not for us," she says. "It's for them." She jerks her head toward the water, and I realize with a sick twist that the scraping along the keel is gone. Whatever was beneath us is gone. Or rather, it's moving. The water ahead of us starts to bulge, not like a wave, but like something rising from below, pushing the surface upward in a slow, terrible swell. The black ship falls back slightly, its crew, or what I thought were crew, now standing motionless along the rail. In the moonlight, their faces seem wrong, blurred somehow, as if the sea has worn them smooth. The staff's note cuts off, leaving a silence so complete it hums. Then the sea breaks. A mass of shapes spills upward, long-limbed, slick-skinned, their hands ending in hooks of bone. They are silent as they climb the side of our hull. Their movements quick but deliberate, like spiders crossing their webs. The first one to crest the rail turns its face toward me, and I wish it hadn't. Its eyes are not eyes at all, but deep pits that seem to breathe in the moonlight. The crew fights. Of course, blades flash, belaying pins swing, but the attackers are too fast. They don't slash wildly. They aim for ropes, for sails, for anything that will slow us. Maud's voice cuts through the chaos, ordering the men to protect the helm above all else. "If they take the wheel, we're done," she says. I find myself between two of them and the wheel, swinging my cutlass more to keep them back than to kill. They don't bleed when cut. The gashes simply close, the skin knitting back together like wet cloth. The glass-eyed prisoner is everywhere, at once, moving faster than I thought possible. He doesn't strike to kill, either he goes for their hands, their grips, knocking them from the rigging before they can cut another line. One of the creatures grabs him by the collar and drags him toward the rail, but Maud is there in a heartbeat, her knife flashing. The thing lets go, hissing without sound, and drops back into the water. It doesn't last long. As suddenly as they came, the creatures pulled back, slipping over the rail and into the sea without a splash. The black ship is already turning away, gliding toward the horizon, the tall figure still watching us, but no longer holding the staff. The sea cones in their wake, the moonlight smoothing over the chaos, as if nothing had happened at all. The deck is a mess, ropes cut, sails torn, 2 men wounded badly enough to need stitches. No one speaks for a while. Then Maud says quietly, "They were testing us." She looks at the prisoner, who doesn't argue. Next time, they won't be so gentle. We work through the night, hatching what we can. The men keep glancing at the horizon, but the black ship doesn't return. Still, no one believes it's gone. When dawn finally comes, the light feels thin, as if the sun itself is wary of this part of the sea. Maud changes course again, steering us toward a stretch of coast she says has old friends and older debts. She doesn't explain, and no one asks. But I notice she keeps one hand on the carved box whenever she's near her quarters, as if it's the only thing that matters now. By midday, a smudge of land appears ahead, jagged cliffs rising from a sea that churns harder than the wind should allow. Somewhere beyond them, Maud says, is a harbor that doesn't appear on any map. If we reach it, she adds, we might get one night's rest without them. She doesn't say what happens if we don single quotes T. The closer we get to the cliffs, the more it feels like the sea doesn't want us here. The swells rise without wind, curling and collapsing with a heavy slap against the hull, forcing the helmsman to fight for every inch of steering. The jagged black rock ahead juts out like the teeth of something half buried, slick with constant spray. Gulls wheel overhead, their cries sharp and restless, but none land on the water. Maud keeps her eyes on the narrow gap between 2 high points of rock, and opening so small it looks impossible for a ship our size to fit. That's your harbor? I ask. She only says it is if you know where to look. The glass-eyed prisoner leans against the rail, watching the cliffs without, blinking. They'll try to cut us off before we get there, he says quietly, and as if the sea heard him, the water beyond the rocks darkens, not the shadow of clouds, but something moving below the surface. At first, it's just a shape, shifting, like smoke under glass. Then it spreads, widening into a long line that curves toward our bow. Maud doesn't look back when she orders the crew to prepare for sharp sailing, which is the polite way to say we're about to risk snapping our mast to keep ahead of whatever's coming. The wind picks up suddenly, rushing in from the east, catching our sails just right to push us toward the gap. The dark line in the water follows, gaining. It's close enough now that I can see breaks in the surface fins, but far too large for any fish. They rise and vanish in unison, never splashing, just cutting through the sea like blades. The men mutter prayers under their breath. I do too, but quietly enough that no one hears. We reach the gap in the cliffs, just as the first of the fins breaks the surface alongside us, revealing not a fish, but something longer, leaner, with skin like stretched leather. Its head rises briefly narrow, with a mouth too wide, filled with teeth that seem to shift like a row of blades. It matches our speed, then falls back, as if letting the others take its place. Maud shouts for the helmsman to thread the needle. The cliffs rise sheer on either side now, so close the wind whips between them like a drawn bowstring. The sound echoes oddly, our sails cracking above, the sea booming below, and somewhere deep in the stone, a low hum that feels almost like a voice. The water here is different, clearer, almost green, and deep enough that you can see shapes moving far below, keeping pace. The first real strike comes when we're halfway through the pass. Something slams into our starboard side hard enough to throw men against the rail. The hull groans but holds. Before we can right ourselves, another hit comes from port, this one sharper, like a spear driving into the planks. The pumps are manned instantly, but the water coming in is minimal more warning than a wound. The message is clear: turn back, or the next strike will be worse. Maud ignores it, her voice cutting through the noise as she orders full sail. The glass-eyed prisoner moves to the bow, scanning the water ahead. There, he shouts, pointing to a shadow near the base of the cliff. I see it, a narrow channel, branching off from the main pass, invisible unless you are looking for it. The helmsman hesitates for a fraction of a second, then throws the wheel hard to port. The ship leans dangerously, the mast groaning, but we make the turn. The channel is barely wider than the ship itself, and the air here is colder, smelling faintly of iron and something sweeter like flowers left too long in the sun. The rock walls rise even higher, blotting out most of the sky, and strange carvings mark their surfaces, lines, spirals, and shapes that seem to shift when you look at them too long. No one speaks. Even the gulls are gone, after what feels like hours but can't be more than minutes. The channel opens into a sheltered cove. The water here is almost still, a pale jade color, with a thin mist hanging low over the surface. On the far side, a small dock clings to the base of the cliff, half rotted but still standing. Beyond it, a narrow path winds upward into the rock, vanishing into shadow. Maud exhales for the first time since we entered the pass. Home for now, she says. We tie up at the dock, and Maud gives strict orders. No one goes inland alone, and no one touches the water. The crew obeys without question. The glass-eyed prisoner lingers at the rail, staring at the mist. They won't follow us here, he says, but they'll wait. He doesn't say how long. The path up the cliff is slick and uneven, carved into the rock and switchbacks so tight you can't see more than a few steps ahead. At the top, the ground levels into a small plateau, sheltered by overhanging stone. A cluster of low buildings, more like stone huts, sits around a central fire pit, which still holds the charred remains of some recent blaze. The air here feels warmer, almost heavy, and there's a faint hum in the stone underfoot, like the cliffs themselves are alive. Maud heads straight for the largest hut, the carved box still tucked under her arm. Inside, the air smells of smoke and dried herbs. A single figure sits cross-legged on the floor, wrapped in a faded cloak, their face shadowed by the hood. "You've brought trouble," they say, their voice deep and resonant, without looking up. "And it's older than you think." The glass-eyed prisoner steps inside behind Maud, his expression unreadable. "We need safe passage," he says. The hooded figure laughs softly, the sound dry as sand. "Safe passage isn't given here," they reply. "It's bought, and you already owe more than you can pay." The hooded figure does not rise from the floor, but the air in the hut changes. It grows heavier, as if the walls have drawn closer. The fire pit in the center gives off no light, only the faint scent of something metallic. Maud stands with her boots planted wide, shoulders square. "Then tell me what you want," she says. "We can't stay here long." The figure tilts, their head slightly, and I catch the glint of eyes deep in the hood too pale, almost reflecting like water under moonlight. "It's not about what I want," they say slowly. "It's about what follows you." The glass-eyed prisoner leans against the wall, his arms crossed. "They've already found us," he says. "If you mean the black ship, it's only a matter of time before it's at the mouth of your cove." The hooded figure lets out a low hum, as if this is neither news nor surprise. "It's not the ship I worry about," they reply. "It's the one who commands it. And if they are after what's in that box?" Their voice trails off, but the silence that follows is sharper than any question. I glance at the carved box under Maud's arm. It hasn't been opened since I've been aboard. Whatever's inside, she treats it like it's more important than the crew, the ship, or even herself. "What is in it?" I ask before I can stop myself. Maud's eyes flick to me, and back to the hooded figure. "Not yours to know," she says flatly. The figure chuckles. "Not yours to keep either, unless you're willing to bleed for it." The hut's doorframe darkens suddenly, and one of our crew bursts in, breathless. "Mist's moving," he says, "from the sea inward." We follow him outside, and sure enough, The thin fog that had been drifting lazily over the cove is thickening, curling in on itself as though pulled by some invisible hand. It slides between the huts, clinging to the ground, and with it comes a faint sound like oars dipping in water, but too slow, too deliberate. Maud turns to the hooded figure. You said they wouldn't follow us here. The figure doesn't answer right away. When they do, their voice is quiet but edged. They don't enter these cliffs willingly. But if they've found a way to anchor beyond the pass and reach through, their gaze shifts to the box. Then your time is even shorter than I thought. The glass-eyed prisoner moves quickly, gathering the crew into a tight circle. We leave now, he says, before the channel is closed. But Maud shakes her head. The tide's turning. We won't make it through before it rises. She looks at the hooded figure. What can get us out? The answer comes without hesitation. The underway. The word means nothing to me. But the prisoner reacts as if someone's just suggested sailing into a storm blindfolded. It's been collapsed for decades, he says, and for good reason. The figure's mouth curves into something that might be a smile. Collapsed, yes. Sealed, no. There's still a way through if you know where to push. The fog is thicker now, and shapes move within its shadows that seem to flicker in and out of existence, always just beyond clear sight. The crew grips. Weapons, but the prisoner shakes his head. They're not here to fight. They're here to hurt us. That thought is somehow worse. The hooded figure disappears into the largest hut, returning with a narrow bundle wrapped in black oilskin. They hand it to Maud. You'll need this for the gate, they say. Maud doesn't unwrap it, just tucks it into her belt beside the box. Show us where, she says. We move quickly, winding through the back of the settlement to a narrow path that hugs the cliff face. The sea is far below, barely visible through the fog, but the sound of it is constant, a deep, steady pulse. The path narrows until we're forced to go single file, the rock pressing on one side, empty air on the empty other. Every so often, I catch movement in the mist below, long, thin shapes gliding just under the surface. Keeping pace. At last, we reach a section of cliff that looks no different from the rust-smooth, damp stone, streaked with mineral lines. The hooded figure places one hand flat against it, closes their eyes, and hums softly. The sound vibrates through the rock, and after a moment, there's a grinding noise, low and slow. A vertical seam appears, widening into a narrow archway, just tall enough for a man to stoop through. Beyond it is only darkness. This is the underway, the figure says. It runs beneath the cliffs, connects to other waters, if you can. Survive the crossing. The prisoner mutters something under his breath that I can't catch. Maud steps forward without hesitation. We'll take our chances. Inside, the air is colder, damp enough that each breath feels heavy. The tunnel slopes downward, and the walls are close enough to brush both shoulders at once. Water seeps from cracks, running in thin rivulets toward the unseen depths ahead. The sound of the sea outside fades, replaced by the slow drip of water, and a faint echo, as if the tunnel itself is breathing. We move deeper, our footsteps muffled by the slick stone. Somewhere far ahead, there's a glow greenish, shifting, like light seen through deep water. Keep your eyes on the floor, the hooded figure warns. If you look too long, you'll forget where you are. I don't understand until I glance toward the glow and feel my balance slip, as if the tunnel has tilted. I snap my gaze down, heart pounding. Behind us, the entrance grinds closed, cutting off the last trace of daylight. The underway is ours now, and whatever else lives inside it. The underway feels like it was carved by something older than tools. The walls aren't straight. They ripple and curve like they've been shaped by slow, heavy waves of stone. Every step we take makes a sound that doesn't fade right away. It lingers in the air, bouncing back in soft, delayed echoes, as if the tunnel is remembering each noise before letting it go. The air is cold enough to make breath visible, and it smells faintly of minerals and something faintly sweet. Like rotting flowers dot, our boots splash through thin streams of water that run along the tunnel floor. The hooded figure moves ahead, without a torch, guiding us by the faint green light seeping from the rock itself. It's not steady. It flickers like light seen through moving water. My eyes keep wanting to follow it, to see what's making it shift, but the warning from before rings in my ears. Don't look too long. So I keep my gaze on the wet stone beneath my feet. The path narrows until the walls press close enough that my shoulders scrape both sides. The sound of the crew breathing becomes louder than the drip of water. Then, without warning, the tunnel opens into a wide chamber. The ceiling arches high above, lost in shadow, and the walls are covered in carvings. At first they look like waves, spirals, and strange animal shapes. But the longer I look, the more I see faces, ships, something like maps. Some of the faces are human. Others are not. Maud steps closer to one of the walls, running her fingers lightly over a set of symbols cut deep into the stone. I've seen these before, she says quietly, but never this far inland. The hooded figure glances back. They mark the crossings, they say. Places where the underway touches other waters, other currents. You'll know them when you feel the pull. The glass-eyed prisoner moves toward the far end of the chamber, where another tunnel waits. But before he can reach it, the green light shifts sharply, pulsing as if something has passed in front of its source. The water on the floor ripples outward from a single point, even though nothing has touched it. The hooded figure raises a hand. Stay still. From the darkness of the far tunnel, a sound rises soft at first, like someone humming. It grows louder, bending in pitch until it's almost a whistle. A shape emerges from the black, tall, thin, and bending at strange angles as it moves. It has no clear face, only a smooth, pale surface where features should be, reflecting the green glow in shifting patterns. Long arms brush the tunnel walls as it glides forward, and its lower half trails into the water like smoke that no one speaks. The figure stops in the center of the chamber and tilts its head as though listening. The humming fades, replaced by the sound of water moving, though nothing stirs the surface. Then it turns not toward Maud, not toward the prisoner, but toward the box under Maud's arm. The hooded figure steps between them, speaking in a language I've never heard, low, flowing, with words that seem to echo more than they should. The pale shape tilts its head again, and for a moment, the glow on its surface flickers in a pattern almost like speech. Then, slowly, it moves past us, slipping into another side passage without a sound. The humming fades into nothing. Only then does anyone breathe. The hooded figure turns to Maud. That is one of the keepers. They guard the crossings. If it had decided you were unworthy, you wouldn't still be holding that box. Maud's grip tightens. And let's move before it changes its mind. Asterisk. We leave the chamber through the far tunnel, which slopes downward more steeply now. The green light grows stronger, enough to show that the water on the floor is deepening. Soon it reaches our ankles, then our knees. Our knees. The tunnel widens again, and I realize the sound ahead isn't just dripping, it's running water. Fast and constant. We step into another vast space, this one filled almost entirely by an underground river. The current moves from left to right, disappearing into a dark archway at the far side. The water glows faintly, not from above, but from within, as though tiny sparks drift through it. There's no bank to walk along. The only way forward is into the river. Maud looks to the hooded figure. This leads out? The figure nods once. Eventually, but not where you expect. The current choices. The prisoner frowns. We'll be split up if we don't hold on. The hooded figure doesn't deny it. Ropes are tied between us, each knot pulled tight enough to bite into my wrists. The cold of the water seeps in immediately as we wade deeper. When it reaches our waists, the current tugs at our legs. At chest height, it's almost pulling us off our feet. The hooded figure moves first, letting the current take them. Maud follows, then the prisoner, then me, and the rest of the crew. The moment the water closes over my head, the sound changes. The rushing is still there, but beneath it is a low, steady tone, like a single note held on a distant horn. The glow is brighter under the surface, and I see shapes drifting alongside us, some like fish, others impossible to name, with too many fins or too many eyes. They keep their distance, but they watch. The current twists without warning, and the tunnel narrows, forcing us to single file. The rope tugs and slackens as we weave through sharp turns and sudden drops. My chest aches from holding my breath, but every time I think we'll surface, the current pulls us deeper. Finally, the water lightens ahead, shifting from green to a pale silvery blue. My head breaks the surface, and I gulp air that smells of salt and something metallic. We're in a vast cavern, the ceiling lost in shadow, and the river here empties into a wide pool. On the far side, an opening lets in a thin line of daylight. Out we paddle toward it, the rope still keeping us together. As we draw closer, I see that the daylight is not from open sky. It's from a narrow crack high above the water, where the sound of waves echoes faintly. The hooded figure stops at the edge of the pool. "This is where I leave you," they say. "From here, the current is yours." Maud nods, but her eyes are on the crack of light. Then we find the sea again. She says, "Before the black ship finds us." The cavern's water is cold but calm, a sharp contrast to the river that hurled us here. Our ropes sag in the stillness, heavy with water. The faint silver blue glow fades the farther it moves from the pool's center, swallowed by the thick darkness of the rock walls. That thin crack of daylight above feels impossibly far, a distant slit in a fortress we have no ladders for. The sound of the waves beyond it is a whisper, reminding us of the sea we still have not truly escaped. Maud drifts toward the center of the pool, eyes searching the walls as if they're hiding something. The hooded figure is already turning back toward the tunnel we came through, offering no instructions and no farewells. "Wait," Maud calls, her voice sharp against the cavern's echo. The figure pauses, but does not turn. "We might need more than luck to get out of here," she says. The figure's voice is low, barely audible over the water. "Luck is all you have now." Then they're gone, swallowed by the same darkness that brought them to us. The glass-eyed prisoner spits into the water, a sharp gesture in the stillness. "They never give more than they have to," he mutters. "If they'd told us everything, we wouldn't have walked into this in the first place." Maud ignores him, swimming toward the far wall where the light falls in a thin column. I follow, the cold seeping into my arms and legs. The stone here is slick with moss, its surface rippling like frozen waves. My fingers search for a hold and find only shallow grooves. The prisoner joins us, scanning the wall. "This was carved once," he says, "long before the moss grew over it. See there?" He points to faint lines running in parallel, worn but still distinct. Stairs or a ledge. Whoever built them didn't expect the water to rise this high. His words hang heavy. It means the sea has claimed more than just the coast. We test the grooves, but they're too shallow to climb without aid. Maud signals for the crew to bring the ropes. We knot them together, making a crude line that can reach halfway to the light. The prisoner loops the end around his chest and begins to climb, feet finding purchase in the grooves. The rope creaks, wet fibers stretching under his weight. Halfway up, the cavern seems to shift. A ripple moves across the pool, not from us, but from something beneath. The water swirls in slow circles, and a deep vibration hums through the stone. I grip the rope without thinking, my eyes on the widening rings. From the center of the pool, bubbles rise, first a few, then a stream, then a sudden burst as something breaks the surface. It's massive, its shape hard to read in the dim light. I see scales, dark and glistening, and a ridge of bony spines that catch the silver blue glow. Two eyes rise above the water, pale and lidless, fixed on the prisoner as he climbs. The thing does not lunge. It drifts closer, the water around it pulling toward its bulk. The prisoner freezes, hands tight on the rope. "Don't splash," Maud says softly, her voice almost a growl. The creature stops directly below him, the spines on its back breaking the surface like jagged rocks. Its head tilts slightly, the eyes never blinking. Then it sinks without a ripple, leaving only the faint shimmer of scales vanishing into the depths. The prisoner breathes out slowly, then keeps climbing, reaching the ledge where the light spills. In from above, he calls down. There's a passage narrow, but it leads upward. Maud follows, then me, the rope digging into my shoulders as I pull myself up. My boots scrape against the grooves, and I try not to look down at the dark water. The passage is tight, forcing us to crawl in places, the air growing warmer the higher. We go. The light strengthens until it's no longer the cold silver blue of the underway, but the muted gold of sun filtered through cloud. When we finally emerge, it's onto a narrow spit of rock high above the sea. Waves crash far below, their spray drifting up in fine mist. To our left, the cliff curves into a small inlet, sheltered enough for a ship to anchor, but the inlet is not empty. The black ship is there. Even at this distance, its shape is unmistakable. Low and long, with sails like dark wings, and a figurehead carved into something I can't quite name. Something with too many teeth. The prisoner swears under. His breath. They found the pass before we did. Maud's jaw tightens. Then they know about the underway. She pulls the box from under her arm, its carved surface damp but untouched. We keep moving. If they've sent a landing party, it means they're not ready to risk the whole crew coming in. We skirt the cliff's edge, the wind tugging at our clothes. The path narrows to less than the width of a man's shoulders in places, forcing us to lean into the stone. From here, I can see the black ship more clearly, ropes dangling into the water, small boats tied to its sides. No movement on deck, but that doesn't comfort me. Ships like that don't need to look alive to be dangerous. As we round the next curve, voices rise from below. We freeze, pressing into the rock. Two small boats are beached on a narrow strip of sand, and figures move between them. Their clothes are dark, their movements precise. Each carries something wrapped in an oilskin, just like the hooded figure gave to Maud. The prisoner leans close. If they've got more of those, they're not here for us. They're here for the gate. Maud's eyes harden. Then we get there first. She signals for us to move faster now, hugging the rock until the path widens again. The wind shifts, carrying the smell of burning wood. Somewhere ahead, out of sight, something is already burning. The smell of burning grows stronger as we press forward along the cliffside. At first, it's just a faint trace carried on the wind, but soon it thickens into something heavier: wet wood, pitch, and the sharp tongue of salt smoke. A path widens enough for us to walk side by side, and in the distance ahead, the cliff rises into a jagged crown, its upper edge silhouetted by the shifting light of fire. Every gust carries the sound of crackling, and beneath it, something else, low, rhythmic, like drums muffled by distance. Maud doesn't speak, but her pace quickens. The prisoner keeps glancing over his shoulder, as if expecting the black ship's crew to round the bend behind us at any moment. The rest of the men follow in silence, eyes narrowed against the wind. My thoughts churn as fast as the sea below. If the fire is theirs, They're signaling. If it's not, then someone else is here. And that might be worse. We round the next curve and find a narrow gully cut into the cliffside, sloping upward toward the firelight. The gully walls are steep and rough, studded with sharp stones and patches of lichen. Halfway up, Maud stops and kneels, brushing ash from a set of footprints pressed into the dirt. They're fresh, too fresh. She touches the edge of one print, feeling the heat of still warm soil. They're close, she says. The prisoner tilts his head, listening. Closer than you think. A faint murmur reaches us from above, voices speaking in low, hurried tones. Maud motions for silence and begins to climb, keeping low, her hands gripping the stone. We follow, our movements muffled by the gully's narrow walls. The air grows hotter with every step. Soon, the flicker of orange light dances across the rocks, and we hear the hiss of sap boiling in burning wood. Burning wood. At the top, we find ourselves on a flat shelf of rock that juts out toward the sea. At its center is a large stone basin, its sides blackened by soot. Flames rise from within it, fed by driftwood and thick bundles of something that smokes heavily: seaweed, maybe, or some kind of resin. Around the basin stand 5 figures, cloaked and hooded, their faces hidden in the shifting light. One of them pours a dark liquid into the flames, and they flare blue for a moment before settling back to orange. The others chant in low, steady voices, their words lost to the wind. Behind them, set into the cliff face, is a narrow opening. Even from here, I can see the strange carvings around its edges: spirals, wave patterns, and the same angular marks. We saw deep in the underway. Maud's eyes fix on that opening. She leans close to the prisoner. That's it, the gate. He frowns. Then they're trying to open it. We're too far to hear their words clearly, but the rhythm of the chanting is unmistakable. Every so often, one of the cloaked figures turns toward the sea, lifting their arms as if calling to something beyond the horizon. The fire's smoke coils upward and then flattens, as though pressing against an invisible ceiling before drifting away. The prisoner's hand tightens on the rope at his belt. "We can't take all 5 without alerting the ship," he whispers. Maud's jaw works as she thinks. We don't have to take all 5. We just have to break the circle. We spread out along the cliff edge, moving in a half-crouch. My heart hammers in my ears, almost drowning out the steady thump of waves far below. The heat from the fire grows more intense, the smell of the resin filling my nose. I can feel it sticking to my skin, thick and oily. Then, a sudden change. Chanting stops. All 5 figures turn toward the sea in unison, raising their arms high. The flames surge upward, twisting into a column shot through with veins of blue light. The smoke thickens and spins, forming a spiral above the basin. From somewhere deep below, a sound rises not from the sea, but from inside the stone itself. It's like the groan of a massive hull under strain, mixed with the rumble of a distant storm. The prisoner glances at Maud. If we're doing this, it's now. She nods, and we move. The first figure doesn't see me until I'm almost on them. My shoulder slams into their side, knocking them off balance. The prisoner yanks another away from the basin, breaking the circle. Maud steps directly into the fire's heat, her hand gripping the carved box. She slams it down on the basin's rim, and the carvings along its sides flare with that same pale blue light. The smoke above shudders, the spiral breaking apart. The sound from the stone turns sharp, almost like a cry, and then cuts off entirely. The remaining cloaked figures shout in a language I can't understand. One of them lunges at Maud, but she ducks aside, pulling the box away. From the cliff's edge, a new sound rises, the splash of oars. The black ship's boats are on their way. The prisoner curses. We're out of time. Maud shoves the box into my arms. "Run," she says. back to the gully. Don't stop, no matter what you hear. We retreat, stumbling down the gully as the cloaked figures regroup behind us. The fire's light fades with every step, replaced by the cold gray of the overcast sky. The sound of the oars grows louder, mixing with shouts from the landing boats. By the time we reach the cliff path again, the first of the black ships, crew are visible, climbing the rocks with the precision of men who've done it before. Maud doesn't look back. "We keep moving," she says, her voice flat but urgent. "The gate's closed for now, but they'll try again. And next time, they might not need the fire." The cliff path twists sharply after the gully, forcing us into a narrow stretch, where the rock presses close on one side and the drop yawns wide on the other. The wind claws at us here, trying to push us toward the sea, and the sound of the black ship's men climbing grows louder. Their boots and hands scrape against stone, their low commands carrying up the cliff like a steady drumbeat. Every few seconds, I glance back and see more of them rounding the bend dark shapes, moving with unsettling speed. Their eyes fixed on us, Maud sets a brutal pace. She doesn't bother looking back, trusting the rest of us to keep up or be lost. The prisoner's breathing is rough but steady, his eyes flicking between the path ahead and the drop below. The box is still in my arms, its carved surface slick from the mist. Even through the damp, I can feel a faint vibration in it, like the pulse of something not entirely asleep. We reach a section where the path widens slightly, enough for Maud to slow and glance over the edge. Far below, the inlet churns with whitewater, where the waves collide with submerged rocks. Two of the black ship's boats have already landed on the strip of sand near the gully. Men are pouring out of them, forming ranks with the precision of drilled soldiers. They are not the ragged kind you find in pirate crews. These move like they've trained for years. Their weapons glint in the muted light long curved blades and crossbows fitted with bolts, fletched in black feathers. The prisoner swears under his breath. If they cut us off from the landward side, we'll be boxed in here. Maud's gaze flicks to the box in my arms. Then we make sure they never get this, no matter what happens. The path ahead begins to climb, the cliff face on our left, rising higher until it overhangs us. The rock here is pocked with holes where seabirds nest, their calls echoing in the wind. A sudden shadow passes over us, and I look up just in time to see a pair of black sails sliding past the edge of the cliff on one of the ship's smaller craft, hugging the coast to shadow our movement. Maud notices it too. They're mirroring. U.S., she says, means they know where the next pass is. The prisoner scowls. Then we take the high road. A side path appears, a steep scramble up loose shale that leads toward the cliff's crown. Maud doesn't hesitate, veering onto it, and we follow, hands and feet working against the sliding stones. The climb is brutal. The wind howls harder the higher we go, and the shale shifts treacherously under our boots. Halfway up, a cry rings out from below. One of the black ship's men has spotted us. Shouts follow, and the sound of pursuit quickens. We crest the top and find ourselves on a windswept plateau. The sea stretches out to one side, the land to the other, rolling hills of coarse grass and scattered boulders. In the far distance, the faint line of a forest marks the inland boundary. But between us and that safety is a broken line of standing stones, weathered by centuries, their surfaces carved with the same spirals and wave patterns as the gate. The prisoner slows as we approach. "These weren't put here for decoration," he says. "This is a marker." Maud eyes the stones warily. "A marker for what?" He doesn't answer immediately, running his fingers along one of the carvings. "For the paths you can't see." Before I can ask what that means, the first of the black ship's men scrambles up onto the plateau behind us. Their leader, a tall figure in a scaled leather coat, lifts a hand, and the rest spread out in a fan, cutting off any retreat back toward the cliff. We're penned between them and the standing stones. Maud steps forward, her voice steady despite the wind. "You don't know what you're carrying," the leader calls to us, his tone almost conversational. "It belongs to the deep, and the deep always takes back what's hers." His eyes settle on the box, and for the first time, I feel its weight as something more than physical. The prisoner shifts his stance, ready to fight. Maud glances at me. "On my word, run through the stones and don't stop until you can't hear the sea." My mouth goes dry. "What's through the stones?" She meets my gaze for half a heartbeat. "Hopefully something they won't follow." "Use into." The leader raises his hand higher, and the black ship's men draw their weapons. The wind snaps at their cloaks, carrying the smell of salt and smoke. Maud takes a single step back toward the stones, her eyes never leading the leaders. "Now," she says, "I run." The prisoner is beside me, Maud close behind. The moment we pass between the first two standing stones, the air changes warmer, heavier, and strangely still, as though we've stepped inside a sealed chamber. The roar of the sea fades to a muffled murmur, replaced by the low hum of something beneath the ground. The grass is taller here, the stones closer together, forming a kind of winding corridor. Behind us, the black ship's men hesitate at the threshold. Their leader steps forward, but the moment his boot crosses into the space between the stones, he freezes, his face twisting in pain. He pulls back sharply, snarling something in a language I don't know. None of them follow. Maud slows only, long enough to look back can confirm they're staying put. "Good," she says, breathing hard. "That buys us time. But whatever's keeping them out might not be friendly to us either." We keep moving deeper into the maze of stones, the hum growing louder, almost matching the faint pulse from the box. The prisoner's eyes flick constantly from one carving to another. "These aren't just warnings," he mutters. "They're instructions." The path bends sharply, and ahead I catch a glimpse of something impossible water, suspended in the air like a wall, its surface rippling slowly as though it's alive. It stretches from the ground to the sky, perfectly vertical, cutting across the plateau. The standing stones end just before it, forming an open half circle. Maud stops at the edge. "Tell me that's not the next gate." The prisoner doesn't answer, but his jaw tightens. "If it is, it's not one I've seen before." The wall of water shifts slightly, and for an instant, I think I see shapes moving within it, long, slow shadows that vanish as quickly as they appear. The hum deepens, vibrating through my bones. The box in my arms grows warmer, the carvings along its side glowing faintly in the dim light. Maud takes a single step forward. "We go through," she says. "Whatever's on the other side, it's better than waiting for them to find a way in." The wall of water is colder than I expected. The moment my fingertips brush it, a shock runs up my arm. Not painful, but deep, like the echo of being submerged far below the surface. The water clings to my skin without wetting it, beads of it holding in place as though time itself has slowed inside this wall. Maud watches closely, her hand tight on the hilt of her blade. The prisoner studies the carvings on the nearest standing stone, tracing the spirals with his finger, as if checking for some hidden sign. "If this is a gate," he mutters, "it's bound to something alive." I take a breath and step forward. The water closes over me without resistance, swallowing the light from behind in a single blink. Sound changes instantly muted, blurred. Every movement echoed faintly, as though inside a vast, hidden cavern. My feet find solid ground beneath me, though it feels springy, like walking on thick moss. The air is damp, almost heavy enough to taste, carrying the smell of seaweed, rain, and something metallic, like rusted iron. When Maud and the prisoner emerge beside me, I realize the world on this side is not night, but dim in a way the sky itself seems reluctant to shine. We stand in a vast hollow, enclosed by sheer cliffs slick with moisture. Water streams down them in thin curtains, feeding shallow pools that dot the ground. The light here comes from somewhere unseen, casting everything in deep blue and green tones as if we are still underwater. The hum from the standing stones is gone, replaced by a faint, steady pulse that I can feel in my ribs. It's coming from deeper inside this hollow, from a narrow channel that leads between two enormous boulders streaked with white mineral lines. The prisoner's gaze follows it. That's where it's anchored, he says, the heart of this place. We start walking, our footsteps muffled on the spongy ground. Small shapes flick in the pools beside us, fish, or something close to fish, their translucent bodies revealing faintly glowing bones. Every so often, one of them rises to the surface and stares with lidless eyes before darting away. Maud notices my glance. "Don't let them distract you," she says softly. "They're only scouts." The path narrows as we approach the boulders, forcing us into a single file. The walls of the channel are close enough to touch, rough and damp beneath my hands. The air grows warmer here, and the pulse in the ground matches more closely the rhythm of my heartbeat. I feel the box shift in my arms, as though something inside it has stirred. We emerge into a chamber unlike anything I've ever seen. It is perfectly round, the walls carved with the same wave and spiral motifs, but here they are deeper, sharper, and somehow fresher, as though they were cut only days ago. At the chamber's center is a pool of still water, so black it looks like a hole into nothing. Above it hangs a shape that at first I think is stone, but then it moves. It is massive, its outline hard to read in the dim light, but I can see the slow expansion and contraction of its surface, like the breathing of some slumbering animal. The prisoner stares, his voice low. It's alive. A faint ripple crosses the pool as if in response, and a tendril of water rises from the surface, stretching toward us. Maud's hand goes to her sword, but the prisoner stops her. No. Sudden moves. If it wanted us dead, it wouldn't be asking. The tendril hovers in front of me, inches from the box. I can feel its pull, not physical, but a steady pressure in my thoughts, urging me to step closer. The carvings on the box begin to glow brighter, casting pale light across the chamber walls. The tendril brushes the box, and the glow pulses. Once, twice, then fades. The water retracts slowly, the massive shape above the pool shifting with a sound like a sigh that the prisoner exhales. It's agreed not to stop us. Maud looks at him sharply. Not to stop us from what? He meets her eyes, from leaving with it. Before she can answer, a deep vibration runs through the ground. It's not the same pulse as before. This is faster, urgent. The prisoner's expression hardens. They found a way past the stones. We turn back toward the channel, but the way we came is no longer there. The walls have shifted, closing into a seamless curve of stone. Maud curses under her breath, scanning the chamber for another exit. That's when I notice the water in the pool is no longer still. It's swirling, pulling toward a dark opening at the far edge. The prisoner nods toward it. That's our way out. But it's not going to be easy. The current grows stronger, and the black opening widens slightly, revealing a faint light beyond. Maud is already moving toward it, pulling her cloak tight. If they're on the other side, we'd better get there before they're ready. The pulse in the ground is now loud enough to feel in my teeth. I clutch the box tighter and follow her into the water. It's icy cold at first, then strangely warm, as if heated from below. The current tugs at my legs, insistent but not overpowering yet. As we wade deeper, the light ahead sharpens, forming a pale circle. Behind us, the massive shape above the pool stirs again, and a low, resonant tone fills the chamber. It's not a warning, it's a farewell. The current seizes us. There's no more walking. We're swept forward into the tunnel, the water carrying us faster and faster. The walls are smooth, almost glass-like, and the light ahead grows brighter. With every second, my lungs burn as I fight to keep my head above the surface. Maud is just ahead, her movements strong and precise despite the speed. The prisoner is behind me, his eyes locked on the light. Then, in a rush, we're outthrown into open air, plunging into a deep tidal pool surrounded by jagged rocks. The shock of the salt water is bracing, and the roar of the sea is deafening. After the muffled silence of the hollow, I surface, gasping, and see Maud already climbing onto a narrow ledge. The prisoner hauls himself up beside her, reaching down to pull me from the water dot. From this new vantage point, I can see the black ship in the distance, its sails angled sharply toward the coast. Smaller boats fan out ahead of it, oars flashing. In the fading light, we have minutes, maybe less, before they reach this cove. Maud meets my gaze, water streaming from her hair. We run inland, she says, voice steady despite the exhaustion. And we don't stop until we're somewhere they can't follow. Behind us, the water from the tunnel gushes into the pool, but already the opening is shrinking, the stone knitting itself closed. Whatever was in that hollow had sealed itself away again. The prisoner glances back only once, before turning to follow Maud into the rough, narrow path that leads up from the cove. The wind carries the smell of the sea after them, but also something else, like the faint echo of that farewell tone, carried on the breeze as we vanish into the hills. The inland path climbs steeply from the cove, a twisting ribbon of rock and scrub that forces us to move in bursts, run a few paces, pause to catch breath, run again. The sea wind fades with every upward step, replaced by the dry, sharp scent of crushed sage and sun-warmed stone. My legs burn, but Maud pushes. You as hard, her eyes constantly scanning the hills above for movement. The prisoner keeps pace with surprising endurance, though his gaze often flicks back toward the distant roar of the tide. The box feels heavier now, as if aware of the pursuit pressing closer. Halfway up the slope, we pause in the shadow of a jagged outcrop. From here, the cove is still visible, a dark slash in the coastline, and the black ships. Smaller boats are already sliding onto the narrow beach. Dark figures leap from them, moving with the same drilled precision we saw earlier. Even at this distance, their intent is unmistakable. Their formation splits into two groups, one sweeping toward the cove's inner rocks, the other taking the cliff path we climbed hours earlier. They don't know exactly where we've gone, but they're covering both routes. Maud studies their movement, then points inland toward a stretch of uneven ground where the hills give way to a plateau dotted with low, crumbling stone walls. Old sheepfolds, she says. If we can make it there, we can lose them in the ruins. Her tone leaves no room for argument. We push onward, following a faint track worn by generations of shepherds. The sun is low now, staining the clouds, a deep bronze. In the far distance, a line of mountains rises like a jagged black wall, their peaks shrouded in thin mist. It's toward those mountains Maud is steering us, though the journey will take more than a day if we survive that long dot. As we near the plateau, the air grows oddly still, the sound of our footsteps muffled by the thick mat of dry grass. The stone walls ahead are covered in lichen, some leaning at strange angles as if the ground beneath them shifted long ago. The prisoner slows, his eyes narrowing at the shapes carved faintly into the largest wall's surface spirals, and waves again, weathered almost to nothing. This land remembers more than sheep, he says quietly. Maud doesn't slow. She leads us between two of the walls, and for a moment, the ruins close around us like a maze. Narrow passages twist left and right, ending in collapsed archways or bramble-choked courtyards. The light fades quickly here, shadows pooling in the corners. I can't shake the feeling of being watched not from above, but from within the walls themselves, as though the stones have eyes. We stop in a small square where 4 walls meet, their tops jagged against the darkening sky. Maud motions for silence, and we listen. At first, there's nothing but the wind threading through the gaps in the stone. Then faint but distinct the scrape of boots on gravel. The sound comes from 2 directions at once. They've split again, Maud whispers. There, trying to box us in. The prisoner's jaw tightens. These ruins are old enough to have more than one way out. We just have to find it before they do. We move quickly but cautiously, weaving through the maze as the bootsteps draw closer. The air feels heavier here, as if the stones themselves are holding their breath. At one corner, the prisoner stops abruptly, kneeling beside a section of wall where the carvings are deeper. Here, he murmurs, running his fingers over a spiral pattern that forms a perfect circle. He presses the center, and to my shock, a section of the wall shifts inward with a grinding sound, revealing a narrow passage just wide enough to squeeze through. Maud goes first, vanishing into the darkness. I follow, the box pressed tight against my chest, the rough stone scraping my shoulders. The prisoner slips in behind me, and the wall grinds shut again, sealing us in blackness. The air is cooler here, and carries the faint scent of damp earth. We move by touch at first, hands brushing the walls, until a pale glow appears ahead, a faint, cold light spilling from somewhere below. The passage slopes downward, curving gently until it opens into a vast underground hall. The ceiling is lost in darkness, but the floor is a wide, flat expanse of stone, cracked and etched with hundreds of overlapping carvings. Some are familiar. Spirals, others jagged lines and shapes that seem to shift if you look at them too long. At the far end of the hall is a raised platform, and upon it, a single standing stone taller than any we've seen. Its surface gleams faintly as though wet, and the carvings upon it pulse with a light so subtle it could almost be imagined. The prisoner approaches it slowly, his voice reverent. This is one of the anchors. Maud frowns. Anchors for what? He looks back at her, his expression unreadable. For keeping certain things asleep. Before we can ask more, a sound echoes faintly down the passage we entered, a metallic clink, followed by the unmistakable scrape of boots. They've found the hidden entrance. Maud's gaze snaps to the prisoner. Is there another way out? He hesitates, then nods toward the standing stone. Through there. I follow his gesture, but there's nothing beyond it but a solid wall. How? He doesn't answer, just steps up to the stone and places both hands on its surface. The carvings flare brighter, and a deep, resonant hum fills the hall. The stone begins to turn impossibly, grinding against the floor until a narrow gap appears behind it. Beyond the gap is darkness thick, absolute. The prisoner glances at U.S. It's a tunnel, but not like the ones you've walked before. Keep your hands on the wall and don't let go, no matter what you hear. Maud steps forward without hesitation, vanishing into the black. I follow, the hum of the standing stone fading behind me. The darkness is complete, pressing in on all sides. My fingers find the wall smooth here, almost glassy, and I keep moving, each step echoing strangely, as though the space shifts around us. Somewhere in the dark, a whisper curls against my ear. It's not a voice I know, but it speaks my name as though it's always known it. I grit my teeth and keep moving, one hand tight on the wall, the other clutching the box. The prisoner's earlier warning circles in my mind don't let go. After what feels like far longer than it could be, the wall curves sharply, and a dim light blooms ahead. We emerge into cool night air, the stars bright above a wide, grassy plain. The ruins are nowhere in sight. We've crossed beneath them entirely. Maud stands ahead, scanning the horizon. Far off, a single light glimmers warm, steady, like a lantern in a farmhouse window. "That's where we're headed," she says. The prisoner nods. It's a safe place for now. But as we set off across the plain, I glance back at the darkness we emerged from. For an instant, I think I see movement there, a shape withdrawing into the shadows, too tall and too still to be human. Then it's gone, and the night closes in behind us. The plain stretches out in all directions, silvered by moonlight, the grass swaying in a restless breeze that carries the smell of earth and distant rain. Each step makes a soft rustle, almost lost under the steady rhythm of our breathing. The lantern light ahead is small but stubborn, holding steady no matter how the wind pushes. Maud leads at a brisk pace, her shadow long and narrow across the ground, her eyes fixed forward like a needle finding its way through cloth. The prisoner walks a half-step behind me, quiet as ever, though I can hear the faint rattle of whatever tools or trinkets he keeps hidden in his coat. The box in my arms is warm now faintly, but unmistakably, as though it knows we are nearing something important. We walk for what feels like an hour, the light never seeming to grow closer, until at last a shape begins to form around it. Low, squat building of stone, half sunken into the ground. Its roof is covered with sod and wildflowers, blending into the plain so well that, without the lantern, we might have passed it by. As we draw nearer, I see that the lantern itself hangs from a simple iron hook above a heavy wooden door, reinforced with bands of dark metal. The glow comes not from oil, but from a small glass sphere that pulses faintly, its light shifting in soft waves. Maud halts a few steps from the door, motioning for silence. She presses her ear to the wood, listening. After a long moment, she knocks 3 quick raps, then 2 slower ones. The sound seems to vanish into the heavy air. From inside, a latch clicks, then another, and the door swings open just enough for a pair of eyes to peer out. They are sharp, green, and quick, moving from Maud to me to the prisoner. Then the door opens fully, revealing a man of indeterminate age, his hair white, but his shoulders broad and unbent. "You're late," he says simply, stepping aside to let us in. His voice is calm, but there's a weight behind it, as though every word is chosen carefully. The interior is dim, lit by the same soft glow as the lantern outside, with walls lined with shelves of books, jars, and small carved figures. Air smells of dried herbs and something faintly metallic. We follow him inside, and the door shuts with a deep, solid thud. Only then does Maud speak. "We had company. They'll be searching the hills by morning." The man nods, unsurprised, and gestures toward a heavy table at the room's center. "Put it there." I hesitate only a second before setting the box down. It seems smaller on the table, though its presence fills the room in a way I can't quite name. The man studies it without touching it, his green eyes narrowing. "It's been a long time since I saw one of these outside the circles." The prisoner tilts his head. "And you'll understand why we can't keep it inside one any longer." That draws the faintest flicker of a smile from the man, though. It doesn't reach his eyes. "You're assuming it's safer out here." I'm not convinced. Maud cuts in. "We didn't come for your approval. We came for your help." The man meets her gaze for a long moment, then sighs, as though setting aside an argument he's had too many times before. "Very well, but understand if we do this, there's no undoing it." He moves to a cabinet against the wall and retrieves a roll of dark cloth. Spreading it on the table, he reveals a set of tools, thin chisels, small hammers, brushes made from what look like feathers. Each is etched with tiny runes that shimmer faintly in the lamplight. "The box isn't locked in the way you think," he says. "It's listening. And to open it, You have to speak its language. As he works, brushing away invisible dust from the carvings, the prisoner drifts to one of the shelves, examining the jars. "You've been busy," he murmurs. The man doesn't. Look up. Busy enough to know that if they're chasing you, they already know more than they should, which means time is short. I watch as he traces one of the spirals with a chisel, the metal tip never quite touching the wood. The carvings begin to glow faintly, the light spreading slowly along the surface, like water finding cracks. The warmth under my palms grows stronger, and I feel a strange vibration in my chest, as though my heartbeat is syncing with whatever is inside. Then, without warning, the glow dims, and the man pulls back sharply. "It knows you're here," he says to me, his tone neither fearful nor relieved, just certain. "And it's deciding." The prisoner steps closer. "How long?" The man shakes his head. "Could be minutes. Could be hours. You can't rush a decision like this." Maud paces to the window, peering out through a narrow slit in the wall. "We might not have hours." Before anyone can respond, a faint, rhythmic thudding reaches my ears, distant, but unmistakable. Hooves. The prisoner moves to the door, listening. They've picked up the trail. Fast riders. Maud's jaw tightens. We can't lead them here. The man considers this for a long moment, then goes to another wall and presses on one of the stones. A section swings inward, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. "There's a place below," he says, "older than the house. If they search, they won't find you if you can stay quiet." Maud doesn't hesitate. She grabs the box, nods for me to follow, and heads down the steps. The prisoner follows close behind, the man sealing the stone door above us. The air is cooler here, the smell of earth stronger. The stairs end in a low chamber lit by a single flickering torch. The walls are rough stone, but every inch of them is carved spirals, waves, and now other shapes I don't recognize. Patterns that seem to twist when I try to focus on them. In the center of the room is a shallow stone basin, filled with dark water. The surface is perfectly still, reflecting the torchlight without distortion. The prisoner circles it slowly, his steps making no sound. "It's connected," he murmurs. Maud looks at him sharply. "To what?" He glances at me, then at the box. "To whatever's inside, and maybe to where it came from." Above us, faint but clear, comes the muffled sound of voices searchers moving through the house. Maud's hand goes to her sword, but the prisoner shakes his head. They won't find the door unless they know what to feel for. The box gives a sudden, sharp pulse of warmth, and the water in the basin ripples once, as though touched by an unseen hand. I can't look away from it. Somewhere deep inside, I feel a pull, not like the current in the tunnel, but gentler, coaxing. The prisoner notices and nods toward it. It wants to speak. I kneel beside the basin, the cool, damp air brushing my face. The ripples spread slowly, and in their shifting patterns, I think I see shapes, hints of landscapes. I don't know. Towers that bend like reeds, skies the color of deep oceans. A voice not quite sound, not quite thought threads through me. It doesn't ask questions. It shows me something. The black ship, its sails now furled, anchored somewhere I can't place. Figures move along its deck, carrying objects that shine faintly, even in shadow. Then the vision changes. I see a different coast, one I don't recognize, where the land rises sharply into cliffs. At the top, a ring of standing stones glows in the night. Between them, shadows move, not the shapes of men, but something taller, slower, as if the stones themselves had stepped away from their places. The image fades, the water stilling once more. I draw back, my pulse quick in my ears. "It's warning us," I say quietly. Maud's expression is unreadable. Then we take the warning seriously. Above, The sound of voices fades, replaced by the distant clatter of hooves retreating into the night. A man's voice echoes down the stairwell. They're gone for now. We climb back up, the box still warm in Maud's arms, the vision in my mind refusing to fade. Whatever waits at that ring of stones, it is tied to all of this, and it knows we're coming. The morning comes with a pale, reluctant light, the kind that doesn't so much brighten the world as pull it gently out of shadow. A thin fog clings to the grasslands, rolling in from somewhere unseen, and the air is cool enough that our breath shows faintly when we speak. The man with the green eyes stands in the doorway as we prepare to leave, his gaze steady on Maud. We'll have one clear day, he says. After that, the fog will turn, and the coast will be harder to read. If they mean to stop you, they'll use the weather. Maud nods, but says nothing. She adjusts the strap of her pack, the box now hidden inside layers of cloth and leather. The prisoner stands off to one side, quietly checking the edges of a set of short, curved blades before sliding them back into sheaths beneath his coat. We set off across the plain, the grass whispering against our boots. The sky above is a wash of soft gray, the sun just a faint, blurred circle. I glance back once to see the small house vanish into the fog, as if it had never been there. Maud keeps a steady pace, her eyes scanning the horizon for the shapes of hills or landmarks. The prisoner walks a few paces behind her, his head slightly turned as if listening to something far off. I don't ask what. The land changes slowly as we move. Low ridges rise and fall, the grass giving way to stretches of pale sand dotted with flat stones. Every so often, we pass weathered posts half buried in the earth, their tops carved with symbols like those we've seen on the box. The prisoner touches one in passing, his fingers tracing the grooves. Markers, he says quietly. Old ones. Someone wanted to guide travelers or warn them. Maud doesn't slow. We'll take it as a sign we're still on the right path. By midday, the fog begins to thin, revealing a jagged coastline far ahead. Dark cliffs drop sharply into the sea, their faces streaked with white from the spray. Between us and them lies a stretch of uneven ground scattered with the remnants of old walls, some still standing waist-high, others nothing more than lines of stone half swallowed by grass. A small stream cuts through the ruins, its water cold and clear. We pause to drink, the air filled with the soft murmur of the current dot as I kneel to fill my flask. Something catches my eye, a shape, carved into one of the stones under the water. It's faint, worn by years of flow, but unmistakable. The spiral, once again. I call Maud over, and she crouches beside me, her eyes narrowing. They've been here, she murmurs. Maybe even before the black ship. The prisoner studies it as well, then glances toward the cliffs. If the ring of stones is what I think it is, we're closer than we thought. We press on, weaving through the ruins. The ground here feels different, underfoot, hollow in places, as if there are chambers beneath us. The prisoner tests one spot with his boot, and the earth gives slightly, producing a faint, echoing thud. He frowns. Caves. Maybe tunnels. Could be useful if we need to disappear. Maud marks the spot in her mind, but doesn't stop. Her focus is fixed on the cliffs ahead, where a narrow path seems to wind upward from a small cove. As we draw nearer, the sound of the sea grows louder, its rhythm broken occasionally by the sharp cry of a distant seabird. The air takes on the Alcoves, tang of salt, sharper than before, and I can feel a faint vibration through the ground. Waves striking rock far below dot, we reach the base of the cliffs by late afternoon. The path is steep, barely wide enough for 2 feet side by side, and slick in places from sea spray. The prisoner goes first, his movements sure despite the loose stones. I follow, gripping the rock where I can. The drop to our right is sheer, the waves smashing against jagged boulders far below. Halfway up, Maud halts, her eyes on a shape far out to sea, a dark sail, low against the horizon. The prisoner sees it too. They're watching, he says, waiting for us to reach the top. Maud's jaw tightens, but she keeps moving. Then we don't give them the chance to decide what happens next. We climb until the path levels out into a narrow ledge that hugs the cliffside. Here, the wind is stronger, carrying with it the deep, steady roar of the sea. Ahead, the ledge widens into a flat stretch of ground where the grass grows in tufts around scattered stones. And there, rising from the earth, we finally see them, the ring of standing stones from my vision. They are taller than I imagined, each one at least twice my height, their surfaces rough and weathered. Some lean slightly, as though straining toward or away from the center. The carvings on them are faint, but present spirals, wave patterns, and other shapes I can't place. The air inside the ring seems thicker, heavier, as if holding its breath. Step into the circle, and the wind drops instantly, replaced by a deep, almost physical silence. The prisoner stands still, his eyes half closed, as though feeling the air. Maud moves to the center, setting the box on the ground. The warmth is stronger now, and the faint vibration I felt before returns, settling into the bones of my arms. Then, from somewhere deep within the stones, comes a sound, not loud, but resonant, like the strike of a bell heard from far away. It's followed by a slow, deliberate shift in the air, as if something vast has just turned its attention toward us. Maud kneels beside the box, her fingers brushing the carvings. It knows, she says softly, and it's waiting to see what we'll do. The prisoner moves to one of the leaning stones, placing both hands flat against it. His eyes open, and there's a sharpness in them I haven't seen before. We're not alone here, he says, and they're not far. Behind, from beyond the cliffs, faint but growing, comes the distant rhythm of oars. The sound of oars cutting through the water is steady, unhurried, and far too deliberate to belong to fishermen. It echoes up the cliffside like a slow heartbeat, each pull in rhythm with the roll of the waves below. Maud stiffens, her eyes shifting toward the edge of the stone ring where the sea is just visible between two leaning pillars. The prisoner tilts his head, listening, then looks to me. They're closer than you think, and they know exactly where we are. The air inside the ring feels heavier now, as if the stones themselves are aware of what approaches. The carvings, along their faces, seem deeper in the fading light, the spirals almost appearing to shift when I glance at them too quickly. A faint hum begins beneath my feet, not the sharp vibration from before, but a low, drawn-out note, like something breathing, far beneath the ground. The box, resting in the grass, gives off a warmth so steady it almost feels alive. Maud crouches beside it, wrapping both hands around the sides. She doesn't lift it yet. Instead, she looks toward the prisoner. If they land, how many can we hold off? The prisoner doesn't answer right away. He walks to the edge of the cliff, peering down into the mist and spray. More than we want to count. And if they've brought the dark-cloaked one, he leaves the thought unfinished, but the meaning is clear. The hum grows stronger, vibrating through the soles of my boots. The prisoner glances toward the center of the ring. It's reacting to them, he says. Maybe it's waiting for them, or for us to make a choice. Maud's grip tightens on the box. The box. Then we choose first. She sets it in the very center of the circle, her movements deliberate, as though following steps she's only half remembering. The moment the box touches the ground inside that central point, the wind outside the ring dies completely. The silence is so sudden, it feels like someone has cupped their hands over my ears. The prisoner's expression changes, not fear, exactly, but a kind of wary respect. It's listening, he murmurs, every word, every thought. From somewhere far below, a wave crashes against the base of the cliffs, and for the first time, The hum deepens into something more like a voice, not speaking in any language I know, but layered in tone and rhythm, carrying a weight that feels ancient. My chest tightens with a strange certainty that whatever is in the box is aware of us as individuals, not just figures moving through the world, but as we are, in all our hidden corners. Maud glances at me, and I realize she's waiting for some signal, some decision. But before I can speak, movement catches my eye. Dark shapes emerging from the mist at sea level. The black ship slides into view, its hull a shadow against the foam. Figures move along the deck, their forms indistinct in the fog, though I can see the gleam of metal at their sides. At the prow stands one figure motionless, its head hooded, its hands resting on the rail. Even from here, I can feel its gaze. Prisoner swears softly. They brought the hood. Maud's voice is low. We don't give it time to reach us. She kneels again, placing her palms flat on the box. Show us, she whispers, not in command, but almost as if asking. Permission. The carvings flare with light, not blinding, but sharp enough that I blink against it. The spirals turn, slow and deliberate, and the hum rises into a pitch that threads into my bones. The grass inside the ring stirs, as though caught in a wind none of us can feel. And then the air changes, dense, shimmering, bending the space. Around us like heat over stone. The prisoner steps back, his eyes on the horizon where the ship still rows closer. It's opening something, he says, his voice tight. Maud doesn't move. Good. Let them find nothing but absence. The light from the carvings thickens, spreading outward until it touches each of the standing stones. One by one, they begin to glow with the same pattern, spirals and waves pulsing in unison. The hum becomes layered now, voices within voices, as if every stone is speaking together. The ground beneath us shifts, not in a collapse, but in a strange, fluid way, as though the world itself has tilted slightly underfoot. I look toward the cliff's edge, and my breath catches. The ship is still there, but the sea around it has gone wrong, the waves now bending away from the cliff, as if some unseen force is pulling them back. The oarsmen keep rowing, but the ship doesn't draw closer. It hangs at the same distance. No matter how many strokes they take, the hooded figure has turned its head slightly, as if watching the space between us warp. Maud's eyes are closed, her breathing steady. I realize she's matching the rhythm of the hum, as though sinking herself to it. The prisoner moves to stand beside her, placing one hand lightly on the box. The glow responds, flaring for an instant before settling into a steady pulse. The air feels heavier, but not suffocating more, like a deep water pressing in on all sides. Then, from within the box, a shape forms not seen with the eyes exactly, but felt. It is vast, coiled, and patient, its presence filling the circle without crossing into the physical. I can't tell if it is alive in the way we are, or something else entirely, but I know it has been waiting. The sensation is neither welcome nor hostile. It is simply aware. The hooded figure on the ship raises a hand, and the oars stop mid-stroke. For a moment, everything is still. The sea, the ship, even the gulls in the sky seem frozen. The hum shifts again, and in that instant, the vision comes. I see the cliff not as it is, but as it was, before the sea reached it, before the stones stood here, before the grass grew. The ground was bare rock, and the air was filled with a light I don't recognize. Golden and sharp dot, and the vision turns forward to something that hasn't yet happened. The ship breaking against the cliffs, the stones scattered, the box gone. The hooded figure standing where we are now, its shadow falling long across the circle. The image breaks, and I'm back in the cold air, the prisoner's hand still on the box, Maud's eyes still shut. She opens them, meeting my gaze. We can't stay here, she says, her voice calm but certain. The choice isn't made yet, And if it's made here, they win. The hum softens, fading into the low wind, and the light along the stones begins to dim. The box's warmth lingers in my arms as Maud lifts it again. Outside the ring, the wind returns at a rush, scattering the last of the strange stillness. The ship is still watching, its oars held high, but it makes no move toward. U.S. The hooded figure lowers its hand, and slowly, the ship begins to turn, sliding back into the mist without a sound. We stand in the circle for a long moment, the sea roaring far below. Whatever just happened has shifted something in the air. Something that will not shift back. The prisoner glances at Maud. Where now? She looks toward the inland hills, where the fog still hangs thick and unmoving. Away from the water, and fast. We leave the ring of stones without looking back, the sound of the waves fading behind us. The box is heavier now, not in weight, but in presence, and I can't shake the sense that whatever is inside, it has learned. Something new about us, Dot. We move inland quickly, not running, but walking with the kind of urgency that keeps the blood sharp and the senses stretched. The path away from the cliff is little more than a worn line through grass and stone, winding between low hills that seem to rise higher the farther we go. The fog thickens again, not the damp sea mist we know, but a heavier, grayer shroud that clings to the ground and twists the shapes of things. Now and then, I catch the outline of a tree that turns out to be nothing but rock, or the shadow of a wall that vanishes. When I blink, Maud keeps her pace steady, the box held close against her chest. The prisoner lags a few steps behind, his head turning slowly from side to side. They're not following from the sea anymore, he says, but something's ahead of us. Has been, for a while. His voice isn't panicked, just coldly certain. I glance at Maud, but she doesn't slow. We keep moving, she says, until they're the ones reacting to us. The land changes again, the grass giving way to patches of bare earth scattered with shards of old pottery and fragments of carved stone. Most of it is half buried, but a few pieces are clean enough that I can make out symbols, spirals, lines, and sharp-angled shapes I haven't seen before. The prisoner crouches at one fragment, brushing the dirt away. Not the same hands that made the stones at the cliff, he says. Older. Maybe much older. Maud's eyes flick to the horizon. Or newer, if they've been waiting for. Used to come this way. We pass through a low gap between two ridges and emerge into a basin-like hollow. The fog pools here, curling in slow eddies that make the air feel thicker, as though we're wading through it. The ground is uneven, sloping slightly toward the center, where a series of large, flat stones lies in a rough circle. At first, I think they're natural, but as we get closer, I see the edges are too sharp. The surface is too smooth. The prisoner stops at the rim of the basin. This is wrong, he says quietly. We shouldn't be here. Maud ignores him and steps forward, picking her way down toward the stones. I follow, though every step feels heavier than the last. The box grows warm again, the heat building, until I can feel it through the layers of cloth and leather. In the center of the stone circle, the fog seems to hang motionless, like a solid thing. Maud steps into it without hesitation, vanishing from sight. I rush after her, the prisoner close behind. For a moment, the world narrows to nothing but gray, no sound, no movement, just the faint pressure of the air against my skin. Then I'm through, and the fog falls away like a curtain. We're no longer in the basin. The ground beneath us is black stone, smooth and dry, stretching in all directions. Above, the sky is a pale, almost colorless expanse, with no sun I can see, yet the air is lit as if from everywhere at once. The prisoner exhales slowly. We've crossed, he says. Maud glances back, but the circle we stepped through is gone. There's nothing behind us now but more black stone in the distance. A single structure rises from the plain, a low, broad building of the same dark material, its walls etched with lines that catch the light in shifting patterns. We move toward it, the silence so complete that even our footsteps sound muted. The heat from the box is constant now, like holding a living thing against my ribs. As we approach, the patterns on the walls resolve into carvings rows of figures, with elongated limbs and featureless faces, their hands raised toward spirals floating above them. Between each row is a single vertical mark, like a dividing line. The prisoner studies them, his brow furrowed. "This isn't a story," he says. "It's a record. A count." Maud asks, "Of what?" He hesitates. "How many have they taken through here?" The entrance to the building is a narrow slit, tall enough for us to pass without bending. Inside, the air is cooler, but heavier, carrying a faint metallic taste. The walls are lined with tall slabs of stone, each carved, with more spirals and marks, though here they're deeper, sharper, as if recently cut. We move deeper until we reach a wide chamber at the heart of the building. Here, the floor is made of a single unbroken slab, polished to a dull sheen. In the center stands a low pedestal, and upon it rests an object not unlike our box but larger, its carvings more intricate, the spirals intersecting in ways that make my eyes ache if I look too long. The heat from our box flares in response. Maud sets it down beside the larger one, and for a moment, nothing happens. Then both sets of carvings light at once, the glow spreading out along the floor in thin lines that form a vast, intricate pattern across the chamber. The lines converge at the walls, and suddenly the slabs begin to shift, rotating slowly to reveal shallow alcoves behind them. In each alcove lies a single object. Some are weapons, others tools, a few things I can't name at all. Each one glimmers faintly, as though dusted with fine frost. The prisoner moves to the nearest, his hand hovering over a long blade that seems to hum faintly. "These aren't just relics," he says. "They're anchors. Things tied to the other side." Maud doesn't move from the pedestal. Her eyes are on the larger box, which is now pulsing in rhythm with ours. "They're waking each other up," she says. "And once they're both fully awake, we won't be able to put them back to sleep." A faint sound rises from outside, at first like distant wind, then more like the creak of wood under strain. The prisoner's head snaps toward the entrance. We didn't leave them behind after all. The glow from the carvings intensifies, and for the first time, I feel something from the larger box, not just heat, but a kind of pull, as though it's reaching for something inside me. My knees feel unsteady. Maud reaches for our box, but the moment her hands touch it, a voice, not hers, not mine, speaks inside my head. One remains. The other follows. The prisoner swears under his breath. They're telling it where we are. Maud lifts the box, and the glow falters, the lines across the floor dimming. But the sound from outside grows louder, now footsteps, heavy and deliberate, moving in unison. We retreat toward the entrance, the box still warm in Maud's arms. The prisoner moves ahead, his blades drawn, his shoulders tight. At the slit of the doorway, the light from outside is different, darker, tinged with a faint red. The air carries the smell of salt and smoke. Stepping out, we see them, a line of figures emerging from the fog, each cloaked in dark fabric that shifts like water. At their head is the hooded figure from the ship, its movements unhurried, as if certain the ground between us will close on its own. The prisoner shifts his stance, ready, but Maud's hand grips his arm. "Not here," she says. "If we fight in this place, we fight on their ground." We turn away from the structure, heading toward a ridge of black stone in the distance. The hooded figure doesn't quicken its pace, but I feel its gaze on my back all the same. A weight that doesn't lift no matter how far we walk. The ground hums faintly beneath our feet. as though the two boxes are still calling to each other, still aware. Ahead, the ridge rises higher, and somewhere beyond it, I think I see a faint shimmer like the edge of the fog we stepped through. Before, Maud's pace quickens. If we can get through before they close it, we can make them follow where we choose. Behind us, the sound of footsteps grows louder. The ridge is steeper than it looked from below, a black sweep of stone that tilts toward the pale sky. Each step sends a small scrape of dust down behind us, the sound sharp in the heavy stillness. Maud climbs first, her free hand pressed to the rock, the box clutched tight against her side. The prisoner follows just below her, his blades sheathed now, his focus fixed on the shimmer beyond the ridge. I come last, glancing over my shoulder with each step. The cloaked figures have spread out, their pace slow but relentless. The hooded leader moves at the center, each stride deliberate, as though the ground is carrying it forward rather than its own feet. The air between us seems to grow thicker, and for a moment I feel as though I'm climbing through water, my lungs working harder, my muscles dragging. The prisoner grits his teeth and hauls himself higher. "They're pulling at us," he says, trying to slow us down. We crest the ridge, and the shimmer is there closer than I'd dared hope. It's not fog this time, not exactly. It's a thin, curved wall of light, bending slightly as though it's breathing. The space beyond it is blurred, but I can see shapes, grass, sky, something that looks like trees swaying in a wind we can't feel here. Maud stops just short of it, her eyes scanning its edge. "It's open," she says, but not for long. The prisoner kneels beside it, running his hand through the air just shy of the surface. "It's tuned to the larger box," he says. "If we pass through with this one, it'll close behind us. If they still have a way to follow, it won't be this way." We all glance back. The figures are nearer now, close enough that I can see faint glints of pale skin under their hoods, though the faces remain hidden in shadow. The leader raises one hand, and I feel a tremor run through the ground, as though something enormous has shifted far below. Maud doesn't wait. She steps toward the shimmer, but before she can touch it, the box in her arms flares with heat, so sudden and fierce that she gasps, nearly dropping it. Light spills from the carvings, not in the soft glow we've seen before, but in sharp, blinding pulses. The larger box's pull is back, stronger than ever, and I realize the hum under our feet isn't coming from behind us anymore. It's coming from beneath us. That prisoner swears, grabs Maud's arm, and pulls her back. It's not just calling to them, it's opening something here. The ridge shudders again, small fragments of stone breaking loose and skittering down into the dark valley. From somewhere below, a deep, hollow sound rises a note so low. It feels more like pressure in my bones than something I can hear. The shimmer wavers. The trees beyond flicker and vanish, replaced by a stretch of black water under a sky with no light. Maud grips the box tighter, her knuckles white. If we go through now, we don't know where we'll land. The prisoner's eyes flick between the figures and the unstable portal. If we stay, we know exactly what happens. The leader reaches the base of the ridge. It doesn't climb, it simply stands there, head tilted slightly, as though listening to something we can't hear. The others fan out to either side, forming a half circle. Then, in one smooth motion, the leader lowers its hood. Its face is not a face at all, not in the human sense. It's a surface of shifting patterns, spirals, and lines that move like smoke trapped under glass. In the center, where eyes should be, are 2 points of deep, colorless light. The patterns shift faster when they settle on the box. My skin prickles, the air in my lungs suddenly too thin. The prisoner steps forward, placing himself between the leader and Maud. "We're leaving," he says, his voice low and hard. The leader tilts its head the other way, the spiral slowing. Then it speaks, not in sound, but directly in the space behind my eyes. Leave the vessel. You may go. Maud's grip tightens on the box. It's not yours, she says aloud. The patterns on the leader's face are still. It is not yours either. The prisoner doesn't wait for more. He pulls a small object from inside his coat, a short rod of dull metal, etched with marks like the ones on the standing stones. With a sharp twist, he drives it into the rock at his feet. A crack of pale light bursts upward, spreading into a jagged line toward the shimmer. The leader reacts at once, the spirals on its face spinning wildly. The half-circle of figures begins to close. "Now!" the prisoner shouts. Maud moves, stepping into the shimmer just as it begins to collapse inward. I follow, the light swallowing. Everything in a single sharp flare. For a heartbeat, there is nothing. No sound, no ground, no sense of direction, just the weightless press of the in-between. And my feet find earth again, and the air is cold, damp, smelling of rain. I stumble forward into tall grass, the sky above heavy with low clouds. The shimmer is gone. Behind us, only the ridgeline remains, empty and still. Maud stands a few paces ahead, the box in her arms once more calm, its glow gone. The prisoner emerges beside me, breathing hard but smiling faintly. "We're through," he says, and they're not. For a moment, it feels finished. But then, faint on the air, I hear it, the deep, hollow note from before, so far away. It could be memory. Maud hears it too. She glances at the box, then at the horizon. "They'll find another way," she says. They always do. We walk on, away from the ridge, into the wet grass and the gray light. The land here is unfamiliar, but somewhere in the distance, a thin plume of smoke rises. It could be a village. It could be something else entirely. Either way, we keep moving. And far behind us, in a place we can no longer see, the patterns are already shifting.